The story begins with an old man writing with his pen, identifying himself as Shartia von de Kremsley, the great chancellor of the Anox Empire. Shartia describes himself as a loyal servant who preferred the pleasure of serving his master over the glory of ruling as the king of vampires. A magical book appears open, hovering over a complex magic circle, and Shartia announces that he dares to leave this record to document the limitless achievements of his master. The record begins by describing a great event. One day, amidst a huge flash of purple lightning that filled the sky, a man suddenly appeared out of nowhere from another world. This man, who appeared accompanied by a catastrophic scene that included a huge dragon, began to invade the continent of Arx. After this invasion, large crowds appear cheering enthusiastically for the life of the Emperor of the Great Arx Empire, celebrating His Majesty's victory. Chancellor Kremsley approaches his master the Emperor, congratulating him, and tells him with overwhelming happiness that with this victory, all dimensions are under his feet. But the Emperor repeats listlessly that, all dimensions. The Emperor continues, turning his back to his Chancellor, expressing his thoughts, explaining that in the end, no one knows anything about his homeland. Kremsley looked at him with concern, wondering what was wrong with him. Kremsley returns to narrating the story, explaining that this man is his master, and that since the day he appeared, it took him only 50 years to conquer the vast continent. Kremsley continues to describe his master's enormous abilities. He is a being who can command millions of the dead with a mere thought, and his skill in swordsmanship has the ability to split mountains and cleave seas. This master is known by the title Emperor of the Anox Empire, and he is an unclassifiable catastrophe that descended from another world. He is immortal, and the king of the dead who rules the living. Kremsley confirms that of all the names used to describe him, none was more fitting than his own. Countless beings knelt before his overwhelming power, and the fools who challenged him were turned into undead, and were forced to declare their eternal loyalty to him. No one, and nothing, was a match for His Majesty. He defeated the dragons that terrified the continent, the Demon King, and the 7 archdukes of the demon world, the heavenly demon and the head of the martial arts world alliance, and even the king of spirits who guards the world tree, and of course all the dimensions connected to the continent of Anox fell at his feet. But Kremsley wonders how a humble being like him can understand his master's will, for what he really wanted was something else entirely. All he wanted was to return to his homeland, Earth. After failing to find a way back to his homeland despite wandering through all dimensions, the Emperor summoned all the gods of war under his command, and from his throne, he addressed his followers, asking them to listen to him, announcing that he was tired and now wished to enter a deep slumber. His followers were shocked, and one of them wondered what this decision meant, while another, who looks like a skeletal lich, asserted that as his servants, they would continue to search for a way for him to return. But the Emperor replied, questioning the point of returning now, explaining that nearly 300 years had passed since he left his homeland. He added that his family and friends, whom he missed dearly, must have grown old, gotten sick, and all died. The Emperor concluded that it was too late, while his followers looked at him sadly. Accordingly, he issued a new order, announcing that from now on, everyone should focus only on finding a way for him to enter eternal rest. The followers shouted in despair, objecting to His Majesty's decision. Kremsley narrates that the sounds of weeping in the imperial palace did not stop that day, but the Emperor's order could not be challenged. In the end, the senior leeches in the palace created a magic circle of disintegration, designed to swallow everything. The Emperor looked at the magic circle, commenting that he supposed he could finally see them all now. With those words only, his master walked alone towards the magic circle. Kremsley followed him, calling out to him, and at that moment, Kremsley appears in the scene, running and rushing, calling his master loudly, and continued to run after him towards the magic circle, announcing that he would serve him even in death. When the Emperor's foot stepped into the glowing magic circle, it seemed that everything had come to an end, or so Kremsley thought. Suddenly a bright light flashed, and a voice was heard asking why the lights were turned off. A man, the Emperor in a new body named Kang Jun, appears holding a baby girl, and scolds Kremsley, who screams as he wakes up in an unfamiliar environment, for his stinginess, ordering him to keep the lights on when he is at home. Kremsley, who is wearing modern sportswear and holding his head, replies that with all due respect, in the darkest of nights, a candle shines brighter than the sun. Kang Jun looks at him with disgust, wondering how this rascal dares to answer him, and advises him that if he has to start his speech with all due respect, it is better not to say anything. Kremsley clears his throat in embarrassment. Then Kremsley asks his master why he has not gone to bed at such a late hour. Kang Jun, in a room full of children's toys, replies, wondering if Kremsley is joking with him, and explains that he cannot sleep because the baby is not sleeping. Kremsley bows deeply, offering his deepest apologies, so Kang Jun tells him not to shout, wondering what he will do if he causes the baby to cry. And indeed, the the baby Sol begins to stir and then bursts into loud crying. Kang Jun angrily tells Kremsley that he is the one who woke her up, so he has to deal with it. Kremsley suggests, starting as usual with all due respect, that she might want a meal, to which Kang Jun replies that he has just fed her baby food. Then Kremsley suggests, with the same preface, that perhaps her diaper should be checked, to which Kang Jun replies that she is perfectly clean. Finally, Kremsley admits, after repeating, with all due respect, that with his humble knowledge, he cannot understand why she is crying, so Kang Jun calls him useless as usual. The scene returns to Kremsley writing in his record, and while he is writing, an urgent call comes to him that startles him. Kang Jun's voice announces the arrival of a late-night snack, and that his sister ordered it for them. Kremsley's eyes shine with excitement at the word snack, and Kang Jun explains that it is chicken, so Kremsley rushes out of the room shouting chicken, and leaves behind his open book. The narration continues from the book, where Kremsley explains that due to the failure of the magic circle, his master finally returned to the homeland he had longed for so much, and he writes that in this place, there was a presence his master would never have imagined, especially since he had never been married and had never had a lover before, and the scene shows a red hair tie, in reference to Her Highness the Princess. Back in the present, the three of them, Kang Jun, Kremsley, and the baby Sol, are sitting down to eat chicken. Kremsley comments that chicken is always delicious. Addressing a woman as Subin, Kang Jun's sister, appears and asks the old man, Kremsley, to eat a lot. Subin offers to hold Sol and feed her, so that he too can eat comfortably. Then she asks him if he stayed home again today, pointing out that he is still certainly confused. Kang Jun, while eating, replies that he is actually comfortable enough because he was at home, and asserts that he is not really confused. Subin looks at him with concern and tells him that he is indeed confused, especially after going through something like this. Kang Jun tries to assert that he is really fine, but Subin interrupts him, telling him that he should not pretend to be fine, and that she is just grateful that he came back alive. Subin reminds him that he disappeared during the first gate incident, wondering how many years have passed, and she adds that he was trapped inside the gate for years and has just returned home, so it would be strange for him to get better immediately. Kang Jun corrects her for the 1000th time, holding Sol, that he was not trapped in a gate, but was suddenly summoned to a place called the continent of Anox. Subin replies sarcastically, wondering if he is going to start talking again about being that incredibly strong emperor of that continent. Kang Jun confirms it, explaining that it is the truth. A description of Li Kang Jun appears. Emperor of Anox, gate survivor, unemployed. Subin continues her sarcasm, then points to Kremsley and asks about the identity of this old man. Kremsley replies by introducing himself to her. Kang Jun explains that Kremsley is his close assistant and another gate survivor, unemployed, and adds that he used to help him with his duties and discuss state affairs with him, to which Kremsley adds that as a loyal servant, he was responsible for most of the administrative affairs. Li Subin, Kang Jun's older sister, a factory worker, replies with apparent understanding. Subin continues with a sigh, pointing out that most survivors of the gates suffer from mental breakdowns or loss of speech due to post-traumatic stress disorder, and she expresses her relief that Kang Jun and the old man, Kremsley, seem to be suffering only from mild delusions. Kang Jun seems annoyed and tells her that even if she is his only sister, it is rude to call him crazy. Subin reassures him that it is okay, and adds, patting him, that he returned after 3 years, and it is normal for him to have difficulty adjusting. Subin continues to encourage him, saying that he has soul and is still young, so he should not worry and just focus on his treatment. Then she corrects her word to adjustment, and she asserts that she will do her best to manage things until then, while Kang Jun remains silent. Then she turns to the old man and tells Kremsley that he can stay with them for as long as he wants until he can reach his family. Kremsley expresses his deep gratitude to Subin Mama. Kang Jun looks questioningly towards Sol, and in the meantime, the baby Li Sol, Kang Jun's daughter, an infant, unemployed, makes a sound. Sol appears holding her untied bib, so Kang Jun mutters that he will tie it for her. And while holding the bib's strings, he mentions that in the past, he would personally weave the knots used to hang those guilty of high treason. Sol looks at him innocently, trying to repeat his words with difficulty. Kang Jun confirms seriously and asks her to watch closely, and while holding a chicken neck and demonstrating with the bib's strings, he explains that if the knot is woven tightly like this, the neck breaks immediately, and before he can finish, Subin, who suddenly appears, screams his name. She stands in shock and asks him what he is saying to a baby. Kang Jun replies calmly that he was just providing paternal education. Subin angrily orders him to stop it and wipe Sol's face, and forbids him from now on from telling any scary stories to the baby. Kang Jun mutters that this is very difficult. Kang Jun gently wipes Sol's face. Subin comments that Sol seems to like her father's touch. Kang Jun holds the baby, who has started to get drowsy, and announces that he is going to put her in the room. He gently lays her in her bed and thinks about his daughter who was born while he was away. Kang Jun remembers a previous scene where Subin was holding the baby and telling him that her name is Lee Sol, and that her mother died during childbirth while he was missing, and she asked him if he remembered anything. In memory, Kang Jun replied that this was 300 years ago. Subin started to repeat 300, but she stopped and said she understood, then reminded him that she is still his daughter, and asked him to treat her well. Back in the present, Kang Jun sits next to the sleeping Sol, and thinks, crossing his arms, that his situation is not that bad. Kang Jun recalls another memory from his previous world, in a field at sunset, where Kremsley asked him what he would like to do if he could return to his homeland. Kang Jun repeated the question, thinking. After thinking, the emperor replied that he would like to enjoy a quiet and ordinary daily life where no one notices him, existing, but barely there. In the present, Kang Jun covers his daughter Sol with a blanket, and completes his thought that raising his child and continuing to live would also be one of those ordinary ways of life. Kang Jun gets up, and his eyes fall on some papers on a nearby desk. He picks up the papers to find a collection of bills and payment notices, including a late payment notice. On the afternoon of the next day, Kang Jun appears wearing a different shirt and holding a spoon, announcing seriously that it seems they have run into a problem. Kang Jun is shown feeding Sol with a spoon, while Kremsley stands in the background. Kremsley hears Kang Jun announce that there is a problem, so Kremsley wonders with concern about the nature of this problem. Kang Jun confirms the matter, then asks Sol if the food is good, to which the baby replies in the affirmative. Kremsley thinks to himself in shock, wondering if the great absolute master himself just said the word problem. Kang Jun asks Kremsley to read those documents aloud. Kremsley holds the papers and begins to read a debt collection notice for unpaid phone bills. Kang Jun asks for the next, so Kremsley continues to read a notice of water shutoff due to late payments. Kang Jun asks for the next again. Kremsley continues to read a notice of electricity supply suspension, then a warning of gas shutoff due to an overdue balance. Kang Jun stops him, saying that is enough, while continuing to feed Sol. Kremsley asks Kang Jun, apologizing for saying this, if all these documents are demanding late payments. Kang Jun confirms that Kremsley is right, and adds that his sister did not mention it, but it seems that the financial situation is in a complete mess. Kremsley, not understanding who would dare to demand payment from a member of the royal family, suggests that they could temporarily raise tax rates and impose progressive taxes on the nobles and regional lords. Kang Jun suppresses a laugh and then bursts out laughing at the idea of progressive taxes while holding his head, which horrifies Kremsley, who wonders what is wrong with his master. Kang Jun tells him with a mischievous smile that he is completely wrong, and he explains that if they compare their situation on Earth to the social classes in Anox, they would barely be at the level of slaves or commoners. Kang Jun continues his explanation, pointing with his finger, that they have to endure hard work and service, and receive a little bit of money from the ruling class just to survive. Kremsley appears extremely shocked, and he thinks to himself that although he holds a pure lineage of royal vampires, and once rose to the rank of vampire lord, and obtained the title of Archduke by serving his majesty with countless meritorious deeds, in this world, he is nothing but a slave. Kremsley staggers and tries to compose himself, telling himself to calm down, and decides that a true follower must prove his loyalty even in times of crisis. Kremsley kneels before Kang Jun, announcing that he will help him establish a new empire, so that he can once again ascend the throne, to which Kang Jun replies indifferently that he should do as he pleases. Kang Jun sighs and holds Sol, explaining that they need to earn money. In a later scene, Kang Jun tries to feed Sol baby food, asking her to open her mouth, but Sol refuses. Subin appears watching them and says that they made this baby food with black sesame seeds especially, but it seems that Sol does not really like it. Kang Jun remembers a piece of advice that when a child refuses to eat, they should never be forced, but should be helped to find interest in the eating process by framing it as a form of play. Kang Jun decides that they will play a game, so Sol and Subin look at him with interest. Kang Jun explains that it is a competition to see who can chew and swallow their food better. Kang Jun raises the spoon and his eyes shine, and he announces that if she wins, she can do whatever she wants today, then asks her if she accepts the challenge. Sol's eyes light up with excitement and she screams her agreement to the challenge. Subin smiles and encourages her, asking Sol to eat and defeat her father. Sol looks on excitedly, while Kang Jun smiles a mischievous smile and thinks that she is too slow. Kang Jun thinks about his past, remembering that he was thrown into the middle of everything on the continent of Anox, and he says that the only reason he was able to rise to become an absolute power was because he did his best, even when hunting a single rabbit. Then he starts eating ferociously, telling her that with her pathetic speed, she will never be able to defeat him. Sol shows a shocked reaction to her father's challenge, and her eyes quickly fill with tears. The baby bursts into tears, so Subin rushes to her and holds her, asking Kang Jun angrily why he made her cry. Kang Jun defends himself by saying that he was not trying to make her cry, but Subin replies that anyone would have thought he was trying to make her cry. Kang Jun looks at his crying daughter and addresses her, saying that if she feels this is unfair, she should become stronger. Subin stands silently. Sol cries even more, so Subin sighs as she tries to calm her down. In the meantime, Kremsley is seen writing in his record, writing that His Majesty the Emperor challenged the princess to a food duel this morning, and that he did his best against the princess, who is not even 3 years old, and snatched the victory. Kremsley continues to write as he looks out the window, concluding his entry by saying that one cannot help but feel a slight concern about his future actions. Later, Kang Jun appears holding Sol, and asks his sister Subin if he can go out today. Subin stops cleaning and asks him in surprise why he is suddenly going out. Subin expresses her concern, saying that it is her day off so she can take care of Sol, but for him to go out alone is worrying. Kremsley intervenes laughing and reassures Subin that it will be perfectly fine, explaining that he will accompany him. Subin asks him in surprise if he is going to join him too. The scene shifts to Kang Jun and Kremsley riding a bus. Kang Jun remembers his conversation with Subin about money. In memory, he remembers Subin admitting that she does not have a single penny, explaining that the neighborhood they live in is dangerous, so the monthly rent is cheap, but she is now using up the security deposit. Kang Jun remembers asking her how much she needed, but she told him not to worry about it, that she would find a solution, and that he should just focus on himself. And she added with a faint laugh that she just hoped to win about 1 billion won from the lottery ticket she bought this week. Subin continued in memory that if she won, they could move to a safe place, and she would be able to focus on Sol until he found a decent job. Subin looked at the sleeping Sol hugging her leg, adding that Sol is at an age where she needs all the love and attention she can get. Back on the bus, Kang Jun thinks to himself that this is a problem that money can solve. He tells Kremsley that he was thinking about it, and explains to him that for his financial activities to go smoothly, he will need a new name and identity. Kremsley wonders if he is talking about his name. Kang Jun confirms it and tells him that he has thought of a new name for him that suits this place. Kremsley swallows and thinks excitedly that the great emperor will give him a new name. Kang Jun announces that he is no longer Shartia von de Krabsley, but Choi Dollars. So double quote. Kremsley repeats the name in confusion and thinks to himself that he has not been in this world for long. Kang Jun notices his expression and asks him if he does not like his new name, so Kremsley shakes his head in denial, so Kang Jun asks him about the expression on his face. Kang Jun explains that the name Dol Su has been passed down through generations and is reserved only for the most loyal followers, and that Dol means rock and Su means steel, which symbolizes that Kremsley possesses a loyalty as solid as rock and steel. Kang Jun adds that he will change the name if he does not like it, so Kremsley interrupts him enthusiastically, telling him that he would not dare, as a humble servant, to arbitrarily judge the value of a name given to him by the emperor himself. Kang Jun nods, expressing his happiness that he likes the name. Then he thinks to himself that the name is much better than Kim Gaidong, which was the first name that came to his mind. They arrive at a bus station in the city. Kang Jun tells Dalsu that they have arrived and they should get off. Dalsu, Kremsley, looks around questioningly, expressing his gratitude for his master's generosity, but asks where exactly they are going. Kang Jun replies that they are going towards a gate. Dalsu's eyes shine, and he thinks excitedly that the gate must be a place teeming with all kinds of monsters. Then he laughs and tells him that he has made a wise decision. Kang Jun had asked Dalsu, Kremsley, why he was so excited, and the latter replied philosophically that, no matter how exceptional a famous sword is, leaving it in its sheath for a long time makes it dull and rusty. He added that the mere thought of finally moving excites him, wondering how long it has been since he was last on a battlefield where blood mixed with screams and life and death hung in the balance. Then Kang Jun pointed out as they walked that it might be a little difficult. Kang Jun then explained that they would only go as porters, which confused Dalsu. The former confirmed that hunting inside the gate requires obtaining a registration card worth 1 million won per person. Then Dalsu knelt in the street, announcing that he could not be just a porter under any circumstances, and asked his master to allow him to work alone until the family's financial situation improved. People gathered around them, wondering about the situation, so Kang Jun asked his companion to stop causing a commotion because everyone was watching them. However, Dalsu refused to get up and swore that even if a blade was put to his neck, he would not accept working as a porter. Then a shadow covered Kang Jun's face and he asked him quietly if he would really refuse to get up. Then he asked him in a sharp tone if he wanted to die. Dalsu panicked then and thought that his master was angry, and remembered that ignoring the warning might make him suffer the same fate as Cheonma, the heavenly demon, who ended tragically. So he quickly got up and apologized to his master, begging for forgiveness. Kang Jun put his hand on his companion's shoulder and told him that he knew his words came from his loyalty. Kang Jun then reassured him, explaining that he had heard that the daily wage for a porter is about 300,000 won, and that they would only need to work for a few days to cover the registration fees and bills, and then they would not have to continue in this job. And while they were talking, a strange man approached them. This man was wearing hunting clothes and carrying a backpack, and he asked if they were the applicants for the porter job for the D-rank gate that day. The scenes showed the area around the entrance to the glowing purple gate, where guards and passers-by were scattered around it. Dalsu noted with surprise that people were passing by it as if nothing had happened even though it was open. The man introduced himself as Kim Bong-gu, a C-rank hunter, and introduced them to the rest of the hunters. Then a huge bald hunter named Lee Byung-cheol expressed his disgust that the old man and the skinny boy would work as porters, and Dalsu replied that despite his advanced age, he was still capable of doing the work, and began to introduce himself before Lee Byung-cheol interrupted him with mockery. Lee Byung-cheol rudely explained that the porter's profession is so arduous that even strong men themselves cannot bear it, wondering with disdain what an old man and a skinny boy could do there. Dalsu then whispered to his master, wondering if he should kill them, but Kang Jun rejected the idea, explaining that the time had not yet come. Then he reminded him that they needed to work as porters for only a few days to collect the money needed to get their ID cards as awakeners. Dalsu then realized his master's intention and thought with admiration that he had almost made a mistake if it were not for his wisdom. Then Kang Jun stepped forward and asked who the leader of the group was. Kim Bong-gu replied that he was the leader of the squad, and Kang Jun asked him if his hesitation to hire them was because of their unreliable appearance, to which Kim admitted, so Lee Byung-cheol intervened, asserting that they were strong and would not cause any trouble. Kim Bong-gu remained hesitant, thinking about what he should do, and remembered his family who were in the hospital, contemplating his great need for money this week, and in the end, he decided to accept the two men into the team, convinced that he could not miss this gate. Lee Byung-cheol looks at Kim Bong-gu in shock, wondering if he is serious. Kim Bong-gu assures him, explaining that it is a D-rank gate, so no major accidents should happen, and that he thinks the two of them can handle it. Kim Bong-gu reminds Lee Byung-cheol of his financial situation, explaining that this week he has to pay his mother's hospital bills, his brother's academy fees, and his field trip fees. Lee Byung-cheol reluctantly agrees. Kim Bong-gu thanks Lee Byung-cheol for his understanding, to which the latter replies that there is no need to thank him, adding that they have that F-rank hunter with them too. Lee Byung-cheol explains his reasoning, that the F-rank hunter will be of no use to their fighting strength anyway, and if they make him share in carrying the luggage with the porters, the luggage problem will be solved. Kang Jun notices this interaction and thinks to himself that it seems there is someone else. At that moment, Lee Byung-cheol sees the F-rank hunter approaching, so he shouts his name, wondering if he will hurry, and adding that he just asked him to bring a cup of coffee, and sighs that he has finally arrived. The F-rank hunter runs, panting, and offers the coffee with an apology. And as Lee Byung-cheol takes the coffee, Kang Jun watches the scene, wondering to himself if a lower-ranked hunter can be treated as a servant, and thinking that the earth is no longer different from the continent of Arcs, where the strong prey on the weak, and feels, for some reason, that this is a little bitter. Lee Byung-cheol throws his bags on the ground and shouts at the others, wondering what they are doing and if they are leaving tomorrow. The F-rank hunter tries to protest, but Lee Byung-cheol rudely interrupts him, telling him to stay behind to help the porters, and asks him sarcastically if he thinks that old man and skinny boy can carry the luggage properly. And Lee Byung-cheol continues to berate him, reminding him that he was kind enough to let him join, and adding that, frankly, if he goes to the front, he will just be a hindrance. The F-rank hunter submits, saying that he understands. Then Lee Byung-cheol turns to Kang Jun and calls him ignorant. Kang Jun repeats the word in his mind in surprise. Lee Byung-cheol assures him, pointing his finger at him, that he means him indeed, and warns him that he will not have the luxury of worrying about his life there, so he should not dare to hinder them. And he adds that the same applies to the old man. Dalsu is enraged, wondering, how dare that insolent scoundrel? After that, Lee Byung-cheol walks away, so the F-rank hunter approaches the luggage, announcing that he will carry the heaviest luggage. And as he lifts a large bag on his back, he adds that, even if he is only F-rank, he is still awakened, and that he may not be of any use in combat, but he can easily carry a few bags. Kang Jun looks at him and agrees with him, and when the hunter hesitates for a moment and asks him what is wrong, Kang Jun replies that he wants to give him a piece of advice. The hunter asks him in surprise what he means, to which Kang Jun explains that he must make money today at all costs, and he does not want any trouble. And when the hunter wonders in confusion, Kang Jun looks at him with a sharp gaze, saying that he is pretending to be so naive and so weak, and advises him that, for today at least, he must continue to act until the end. Kang Jun adds coldly that he just has to help them carry their luggage and go back quietly, wondering if that is so hard to understand. Then he turns to Dalsu and tells him that they should go, and Dalsu agrees. And when they arrive at the entrance office, Dalsu asks if this is some kind of entry procedure. An employee behind the desk addresses Kim Bong-gu, confirming their reservation to use the gate near Guro Digital Complex Station and adding that they can enter now. But the employee warns them that, although this is just a D-rank gate, a series of fatal accidents have occurred here recently. Kim Bong-gu repeats with concern the phrase fatal accidents, to which the employee confirms, saying that the management office has designated it as an investigation site, and adds that they say the difficulty is not high, but the reason is unknown, so please be careful, to which Kim Bong-gu thanks him. The glowing purple gate appears outside. The three hunters, Kim Bong-gu, Lee Byung-cheol, and the F-rank hunter, run and enter the gate. Kang Jun tells Dalsu that they should go too, to which the latter replies in the affirmative, and they enter behind them. As soon as they enter, the system interface appears before Kang Jun in a black void, displaying messages such as initiating player information registration, determining players' military strength, and loading players' achievements, with progress percentages appearing. Then two final messages appear. This player's physical abilities exceed the standard, so an accurate measurement cannot be loaded, and player information registration complete. After that, the team finds themselves in a dark and scary forest, and Lee Byung-cheol comments that there is something suspicious about this gate. Lee Byung-cheol continues to talk, wondering if they were told that undead-type monsters would appear. Kim Bong-gu confirms it, saying that they have to do their best to finish it quickly. Kang Jun walks behind them. Suddenly, a huge blue system window appears in front of Kang Jun alone. The window displays player name Lee Kang Jun, class Necromancer, level 1. It lists his titles and stats, which appear as open parenthesis question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, close parenthesis, and it explains that the player's level is too low to summon any followers. Kang Jun wonders to himself, what is this? Kang Jun continues to analyze the window and thinks with annoyance that being level 1 is complete nonsense, adding that even he has difficulty measuring his strength, so who dares to measure it this way? And he also wonders about the meaning of divine power. However, Kang Jun finds the topic of titles interesting, so he assumes that he got the title, Absolute Necromancer, when his black magic reached the 9th circle, and looking at the title, Dimension Invader, he assumes that he got it because he unintentionally plunged several dimensions into crisis while searching for a way back to Earth. As for the title, Demon Slayer, he thinks that he probably killed more than 1 million demons. And for the title, Dragon Slayer, he guesses that he got it for killing that dragon at that time. Then he moves on to the one who plundered the world tree. Kang Jun thinks that it is amazing that they go to the extent of giving a title just for snatching the divine tree from the spirit world, remembering that he only took it to plant it in the palace garden because it looked empty, and adding to himself that he did not know it would wither so quickly. Kang Jun looks at the followers section and realizes that if he raises his level, he can summon the followers he has made a contract with. Kang Jun smiles and thinks that it will not be limited to Dalsu, Kremsley, but if he can also summon the ministers of the imperial court, the palace, the joint chiefs of staff, and the treasury to Earth, then that would be incredibly convenient. At that moment, Lee Byung-cheol shouts at Kang Jun, scolding him for being distracted in a place where their lives are on the line. Kim Bong-gu announces that they should move. The group walks through the dark and desolate forest, where the three hunters walk in front, while Kang Jun and Dalsu follow behind. Lee Byung-cheol comments with disgust on the disgusting place. Kim Bong-gu agrees with him, saying that they should finish this quickly and get out of here. The F-rank hunter turns back towards Kang Jun and Dalsu, so Kang Jun wonders if they should just follow them. Dalsu, Kremsley, whispers to Kang Jun that this place is surprisingly comfortable, and he adds that he feels as if his exhausted body and mind are recovering, to which Kang Jun replies that he is nice. Kang Jun looks around in the dense forest, wondering if there were not supposed to be undead-type monsters here, and he thinks that this place is similar to the Deadlands, a forbidden area on the continent of Anox, and he feels that it is refreshing for the first time. Suddenly, Kim Bong-gu raises his hand and orders everyone to stop. The F-rank hunter gets ready and gathers glowing blue energy in his hands. Kim Bong-gu says that it is time to work, to which the F-rank hunter replies in the affirmative. A group of armed skeletons appears rising from the ground in front of them. Kim Bong-gu gathers his magical energy, forming a huge ice spear. He shouts and throws the spear at one of the skeletons, and unleashes his attack, which pierces the skeletons. Kang Jun watches the magical explosion with slight interest. Kang Jun continues to watch the fight and thinks that it is interesting. In the meantime, Lee Byung-cheol uses his huge shield to block the attack and defeat several skeletons. Kang Jun analyzes the scene and thinks that they are weak, but at least they have form. After the fight ends, the floor is filled with the remains of skeletons. Kim Bong-gu sighs in relief, noting that this is all there is to it. Then he orders the group to collect the mana stones first, then move on. Kang Jun, Dol-soo, and the F-rank hunter begin to collect the glowing purple stones from among the scattered graves and bones. Suddenly more skeletons attack them. Lee Byung-cheol expresses his anger, wondering with exasperation if there are more of them and how many times this has happened. While blocking an attack with his shield, he shouts at the skeletons, telling them to get out of his face. Kang Jun warns him that he might want to be careful this time, which angers Lee Byung-cheol, who asks him exasperatedly what he means. Kang Jun calmly explains that there are archers among them. Lee Byung-cheol scoffs, wondering if that is nonsense, and suddenly arrows fly towards him. He mutters angrily as he raises his shield with difficulty to block the arrows that hit it with force. Both Lee Byung-cheol and Kim Bong-gu seem to be in shock, and the former mutters, wondering what is happening. At that moment, an arrow heads directly for Kang Jun, but he catches it with his hand calmly before it hits his face. Kang Jun looks at the broken arrow in his hand, muttering with annoyance about why it happened. Kim Bong-gu and Lee Byung-cheol look at him in disbelief. The former wonders how he did that, while the latter asks what he means. Kang Jun replies indifferently, explaining that it was just luck. Then he turns towards the hunters, scolding them for their lack of attention, and adds angrily that he almost died because of them, then mutters with exhaustion about how difficult and bitter it is to try to make a living. Kim Bong-gu watches Kang Jun and thinks to himself, wondering if he really almost died, but then he realizes that it is not so. He then looks at the arrow lying on the ground, wondering if it was really just luck. More skeletons attack, so Kim Bong-gu shouts, demanding that they eliminate those creatures first. Lee Byung-cheol joins him, emphasizing the need to eliminate them. And while the three hunters fight the skeletons in front, Dol-soo is in the back, holding his head and in pain as he calls out to his leader. At that moment, Kang Jun is playing a game of rock, paper, scissors with him. He tells him that he is thinking of throwing rock this time, with the possibility of changing his mind, so Dol-soo begs him to stop. Kang Jun asks him why he refuses to play, explaining that it is a fun game. Dol-soo complains that he is the only one getting hit and begs to be killed instead. Kang Jun replies that this time might be different and invites him for the next round. In the meantime, the F-rank hunter watches them silently. The F-rank hunter thinks to himself that this man has been bothering him for a while, and he remembers Kang Jun's previous warning to him to continue to act well, and he sees that Kang Jun is acting as if he knows something and is proud of it, so he wonders if he belongs to the management office. At the same time, Kang Jun continues his game, asking Dol-soo what he will throw next. Dol-soo begs him to play fair, so Kang Jun asks him with disdain if he is accusing him of cheating, to which Dol-soo quickly denies it. Kang Jun interrupts him, announcing that he has decided to choose rock, so Dol-soo thinks excitedly about choosing scissors. Then, the F-rank hunter shakes his head, thinking that the office could not have sent madmen like these. And as the F-rank hunter turns around, Kang Jun's expression turns serious, and he thinks that they are about to arrive. In front, Lee Byung-cheol finishes off the last skeleton, commenting that this seems to be the last one. Kim Bong-gu confirms that it is finally over. Kim Bong-gu says that everyone worked hard and suggests that they go back now. Suddenly, the F-rank hunter is surprised and shouts, asking what he sees, pointing forward. In the distance, through the fog, a silhouette of a monastery or castle appears. A system window appears in front of Kim Bong-gu, announcing that the hidden dungeon called the Demon Worshippers Monastery has been opened. Kim Bong-gu wonders in surprise about it being a hidden dungeon, and he thinks that this type of dungeon is where people hit the jackpot because it is full of priceless artifacts and rare magic books, in addition to treasures that cannot be found anywhere else, and sometimes it even contains elixirs. Kim Bong-gu feels extremely excited and thinks that what he wants most now is to finally find an elixir, the only medicine capable of waking his mother from her coma. Kim Bong-gu continues to think, remembering that those that appear in auctions are sold at exorbitant prices, much higher than what he can afford, and he realizes that if he can get one himself, this is his only chance. He adds that he does not want to back down, but wants to give it a try. Then he asks the group loudly what they should do about the hidden dungeon. Lee Byung-cheol looks at the system window, commenting that it is the first time he has seen one in person, and he thinks that if they report it to the office will give them a little reward and take all the rights. Kim Bong-gu suggests that since they are already there, it is better to try to finish it themselves. Lee Byung-cheol replies with doubt, wondering if he really thinks this group is capable of succeeding, adding frankly that only the two of them have real power. Kim Bong-gu tries to convince him, pointing out that they have become strong enough and that it is still inside a D-rank gate, so it is not very dangerous. And when Lee Byung-cheol asks him if he is sure about that, Kim Bong-gu assures him that the worst-case scenario is that it is just D-rank. Then Lee Byung-cheol gets excited and decides to give it a try, thinking to himself that if he can make a big profit, he might be able to retire for good. Then he turns to the three porters, Kang Jun, Dol-soo, and the F-rank hunter, and asks them for their opinion. The F-rank hunter wonders if this is considered overtime, and also asks about the amount of overtime pay. Lee Byung-cheol raises his hand with 5 fingers, announcing that he will pay 5 times the usual price. But he warns them to think carefully because that means the risk will also be 5 times higher. The porters start calculating the amount, so the daily wage was 300,000 won, and 5 times that is 1,500,000 won. Kang Jun enthusiastically declares his agreement, and the F-rank hunter hesitantly follows, announcing his participation as well. Kim Bong-gu nods, saying that the deal is done, and announces the start of the raid, while Lee Byung-cheol adds that they will set off now. The 3 porters follow the hunters as they head towards the monastery, and as they approach the majestic and scary Gothic building, Kim Bong-gu comments that the gate seems to have a terrifying aura. Then he announces that he will enter first. The group enters through the huge doors. Kang Jun notices that the place is very dark, and Kim Bong-gu agrees, adding that it is better to move cautiously. And as they advance, the door locks by itself. So Kim Bong-gu suddenly shouts, warning that the door is closing. Lee Byung-cheol turns in panic, wondering if they have become trapped. The door closes completely behind them. Lee Byung-cheol shouts, telling everyone to try to open it while he rushes towards it. He tries to push the heavy, ornate door, but he notices that it does not move. He punches the door with his fist in anger and concludes that the door will not open until the place is cleared of monsters. Kim Bong-gu calmly replies, reminding him that they came from the beginning with the intention of finishing it. Then they decide to continue moving forward. Dol-soo wonders about the locked door, but Kang Jun reassures him that it is nothing, and that in the worst case it is just a barrier spell that he can break if necessary, and urges him to move on. The group proceeds through a long, dark corridor decorated with strange carvings. Kim Bong-gu points out the strangeness of the absence of any monsters, and Lee Byung-cheol agrees. Suddenly Kim Bong-gu stops and tells them to wait, then wonders in amazement at what he sees, while Lee Byung-cheol's face also shows a look of shock. The group discovers a large hall filled with a huge number of corpses and blood, as if a violent battle had taken place. Lee Byung-cheol mutters that he cannot believe what he is seeing. Kim Bong-gu notes that it looks as if a battle had taken place here and both sides were annihilated, and suddenly the F-rank hunter shouts to alert them to something. At the end of the hall, there is a blood-stained altar on which sits a huge statue of a winged demon. Kim Bong-gu seems to be stammering as he wonders if what he is seeing is really a demon. Kang Jun quietly wonders what is happening in this place, while thinking that he has seen this scene somewhere before. Dol-soo notices something carved on the altar, pointing out that it looks like a language from another world. Kang Jun orders him to translate it, and Dol-soo replies in the affirmative. Dol-soo begins to examine the inscriptions, explaining that they are written in the language of the demon world. Lee Byung-cheol asks him if he can read them, and Dol-soo replies, adjusting his monocle, that he will read them aloud. Dol-soo reads the first part, which states that the trial must be passed and worthiness proven. Kim Bong-gu wonders about the meaning of the trial. Dol-soo looks at the scattered corpses around them and concludes that the trial was to fight the monsters guarding the place, adding that since everyone is dead, it means they have already passed the trial. Dol-soo continues to read, pointing to the inscription that mentions that faith and loyalty must be proven by offering 10 living souls on the altar. Lee Byung-cheol wonders with disgust what kind of nonsense he is reading. Dol-soo continues to read, explaining that the text refers to the descent of the noble guardian of hell and the need to kneel before him and beg him for forgiveness, and that only those he forgives may return alive. Dol-soo comments with admiration on the blood-stained altar and the burning candles, saying that it is amazing, and pointing out that the altar is enchanted with a summoning spell strong enough to summon a high-level demon. Lee Byung-cheol shouts angrily at him, calling him a senile old fool and expressing his disbelief in this talk. Dol-soo calmly points to inscriptions on the nearby wall, explaining that they symbolize the fire of hell, and he explains that the fire of hell is an eternal flame that feeds on life force, and that it is a common catalyst for summoning demons. Kim Bong-gu realizes this with horror, pointing out that each flame of this type needs the life of one person, and that there are 9 candles already lit on the altar. Kim Bong-gu concludes that 9 sacrifices have already been made, and that 1 more will complete the ritual, and asks if this is supposed to be a way to summon the demon and beg him to let them live, to which Dol-soo confirms according to what is written on the plaque. Lee Byung-cheol scoffs, wondering if they really believe that. Suddenly the F-rank hunter intervenes, saying that they have to make a decision. Kim Bong-gu asks him in surprise what he means, and the hunter replies with a scary look as he tightens his bag, wondering if they are going to sit there and all die. Kim Bong-gu seems confused as he asks him what he means. The F-rank hunter continues in an ominous tone, saying that the time has come, and that one of them, Lee Byung-cheol, looks at him in horror, wondering why he has that look. Then the F-rank hunter bursts into hysterical laughter. Lee Byung-cheol shouts angrily, calling him a scoundrel, and expressing that the situation is not funny, while Kim Bong-gu looks scared. The hunter apologizes sarcastically, saying that seeing everyone frozen in fear was so pathetic that it made him laugh. Then he announces coldly that the time has come to decide who the next sacrifice will be, wondering who among them is the most useless human. Kim Bong-gu protests, refusing, and insists that if they search carefully, there must be a way for everyone to get out alive. As for Lee Byung-cheol, he thinks to himself that this man seems crazy, adding that if someone has to die, it should be someone who has already lived long enough, while his eyes turn towards Dalsu, Kremsley, and Kang Jun. Dalsu notices that look directed at them, and wonders to himself if he is the one meant by someone who lived long enough. Then he realizes that he is not human in the first place, wondering with fear if the one meant is his master who is over 300 years old. Dalsu whispers to his master Kang Jun, begging his forgiveness, warning him that those insolent people seem to be targeting him and describing him as someone who has lived long enough. But Kang Jun replies calmly, looking at him, and confirming that he is the one meant. And when Dalsu wonders in confusion if he is really the one meant, Kang Jun confirms it again. Then he asks him to stay still, in reference to his previous loss in the game of rock, paper, scissors, so Dalsu submits to his will. And at that moment, Kim Bong-gu shouts, demanding not to rush and to try to find a way for everyone to survive. Lee Byung-cheol shouts angrily at Kim Bong-gu, accusing him of still trying to play the saint, and he asserts that he is not wrong, warning that if they continue like this, they will all be trapped and perish. And he adds angrily that it is all because of Kim Bong-gu bringing up the subject in the first place, but the latter tries to calm him down, saying that arguing about who is right will not change anything. Lee Byung-cheol replies with a hateful look, saying that if he insists on playing the hypocrite to the end, he should die instead. Kim Bong-gu wonders in shock what he means, to which Lee Byung-cheol replies sarcastically, wondering if he really does not want that. And suddenly, the F-rank hunter starts laughing hysterically and comments on the scene that it is very entertaining, adding that when people are cornered, they reveal their ugly natures. Lee Byung-cheol turns to him angrily, wondering what is wrong with him, to which the F-rank hunter replies that there is no need for more fighting, as the matter has become clear. Then the F-rank hunter reveals his true face, explaining that he intended to kill them all from the beginning, and he begins to cast a spell. So dark purple energy gathers around him and skeletons rise from the ground in response to his magic. Then Lee Byung-cheol realizes in horror that he is a necromancer, and he shouts angrily, trying to curse him. The necromancer, who was the former F-rank hunter, smiles a wicked smile, noting that they have finally realized his true nature. Then he reveals his identity as a hunter-killer who belongs to the Anti-Office Alliance. And he corrects Lee Byung-cheol, saying that he is not of the garbage rank but of the A rank, explaining that he is fundamentally different from the likes of them, considering himself a great being. Lee Byung-cheol is stunned as he repeats the name of the Alliance, remembering that they, unlike the Hunter's office, believe that those with special powers should monopolize wealth and power. And he realizes that this man is a killer who tracks down hunters affiliated with the office. Lee Byung-cheol looks at the army of skeletons that the necromancer has summoned, thinking desperately that their number could reach 20 or 30, and he realizes that they are now also facing an A-rank killer. Then Kim Bong-gu says that there is no chance of winning, so Lee Byung-cheol collapses to his knees, announcing that it is over and that they are as good as dead, but Kim Bong-gu shouts at him angrily, demanding that they at least try to fight. The necromancer extends his hand towards the fallen Lee Byung-cheol, mocking his posture and demanding that he accept his fate and be the sacrifice for the great cause. And at that moment, Kang Jun steps forward, addressing the necromancer and demanding that he stop. He explains to him that killing these men now would be a little annoying, so the necromancer asks him in surprise, to which Kang Jun replies that he owes these people. Kang Jun confronts the necromancer, who was previously an F-rank hunter, reminding him that he had clearly warned him earlier that it was better to continue pretending until the end. And when the necromancer asks him if he belongs to the office, Kang Jun denies it, but the necromancer insists on knowing his true origin. So Kang Jun simply replies that he came from the house in Silumdong. The necromancer then realizes that Kang Jun has no intention of revealing his affiliation, so he asks him again how he got here specifically. Kang Jun replies sarcastically that he came by public transport, on a direct bus from Silum Station. And when the necromancer expresses his doubt about the logic of the answer, Kang Jun replies that he will complain anyway, whether he answers or not. Kang Jun changes the subject and asks his opponent about his plan behind summoning a demon. The necromancer reveals that he intends to summon Marbus, one of the 72 great demons. Kang Jun repeats the name as if it were familiar to him. Then the necromancer explains that he plans to declare his loyalty to Marbus and form a contract of servitude with him, but Kang Jun interrupts him, saying that this explains it. The necromancer continues to explain his goal, stating that he seeks to borrow the immense power of Marbus to rebuild the world order, but Kang Jun interrupts him again, noting that he had thought his features were familiar to him for a while. Then Kang Jun mentions casually that he is sure he himself killed most of the 72 demons when they invaded before, and an image of him fighting them appears in his memory. He also wonders to himself if this Marbas was one of the few who managed to escape and survive at that time, while another image of a fleeing demon appears to him. The necromancer ignores his words and declares firmly that, for the great cause, Kang Jun must die. The necromancer unleashes dark magic, summoning many skeletal and shadowy figures. At that moment, Lee Byung-cheol feels desperate, lamenting his imminent death in this absurd way, while Kim Bong-gu apologizes to everyone, admitting that his greed is what led them to this situation. Then Kang Jun steps forward, passing the desperate Kim Bong-gu, and says with calm realism that death will come to them all one day, but not now. Kim Bong-gu looks at him in confusion, not understanding what he means. Kang Jun stands facing the necromancer and his summoned army, then says to him coldly that if he wants him to die, he must first pay him his wages, and then he will die. And as soon as he finishes his words, he unleashes a huge torrent of black-purple mana energy that floods the entire hall. The necromancer looks at him in shock and disbelief, wondering in amazement what he is seeing and how Kang Jun can possess black mana of such power. The necromancer realizes with horror that Kang Jun's black mana is similar to his own, but it differs from it in degree immensely. And as his eyes widen in terror, Kang Jun's reflection appears in them, and he stammers with extreme fear. And behind Kang Jun appears a giant, terrifying, shadowy figure that resembles the Grim Reaper himself. The necromancer screams in panic, realizing that what is in front of him is the Reaper. And soon he completely collapses from fear, begging and pleading for mercy, and only one thought comes to his mind: he must escape. At that moment, Kang Jun calls out in a powerful voice to Kremsley, which is Dol-Su's real name. The latter responds immediately in the affirmative. Then Kang Jun orders him to prepare to show due respect. Dol-Su's eyes glow crimson as he begins to make a grand, formal announcement, announcing the arrival of an irregular catastrophe. Then he continues in a booming voice, identifying Kang Jun as the king of the dead who rules and dominates the living. And Dol-Su concludes his grand announcement, addressing the panicked necromancer. The mighty immortal, hail his majesty the emperor, while an aura of swirling dark energy surrounds him, and the scene ends with all the skeletons kneeling. Kim Bong-gu looks at the scene in complete shock, wondering in his mind what is happening. Meanwhile, the necromancer, who was pretending to be an F-rank hunter, was kneeling on the ground before Kang Jun, apologizing and begging him to spare his life. Kang Jun, surrounded by an aura of dark energy, tells him that frankly, he too just wanted a normal life. Kang Jun steps forward towards the kneeling necromancer and crouches before him, continuing that he wanted a quiet and simple life without drawing attention. He then grabs the necromancer's face, forcing him to look up, and tells him sarcastically that he speaks as if his wish, for a quiet life, was a noble desire. At that moment, Kang Jun's eyes glow red with a strange symbol, and their reflection appears in the terrified necromancer's eyes. Dol-Su, Kremsley, realizes that his master has activated his demonic eye. Dol-Su explains that this is a high-level illusion technique that drags anyone who meets his master's gaze into a nightmarish vision. Dol-Su explains that the greater the power gap between his master and the victim, the more terrifying the hell the victim sees. The necromancer screams in terror as he sees horrifying visions of monsters and blood flood his consciousness. The necromancer falls to the ground unconscious, trembling. Kim Bong-gu watches the scene in complete confusion, wondering what is happening now, and who this man, Kang Jun, is. Kang Jun stands up and looks at the collapsed body, commenting that the necromancer wasn't bad as he remained conscious for longer than most of his victims. Then Kang Jun turns his gaze to Kim Bong-gu and asks if he wants to end up like the necromancer. Kim Bong-gu stammers a refusal, trembling with fear. Kang Jun orders him to watch his words. At this moment, Dol-Su steps forward, asking his master's leave, and asks if they should kill Kim Bong-gu to ensure his silence. Kim Bong-gu is terrified to hear this suggestion, but Kang Jun replies that it's fine, and that he has already placed a prohibition spell on him. Upon hearing this, Dol-Su suggests that they should now focus on summoning the demon and finding a way out. Kang Jun agrees, adding that if the summoned demon refuses to cooperate, they will kill it themselves and find another way out. Kang Jun looks at the body of the necromancer lying on the ground, and orders the skeletons, who are still kneeling, to summon the demon. The skeletons immediately rise, drag the necromancer's body, and place it on the altar. One of the skeletons raises its sword and stabs the victim as the 10th offering. Blood splatters everywhere, while Kim Bong-gu covers his mouth in horror. The 10th and final candle on the altar ignites, and a massive dark energy erupts from the altar, pushing Kim Bong-gu back. A huge winged demonic creature resembling a gargoyle trembles on the altar. Kang Jun looks at the summoned creature and comments that it's an impressive entrance. Meanwhile, the summoned demon, Marbas, was thinking that for centuries he had not forgotten the day he witnessed the slaughter of his kin before his eyes, and how the few survivors had to scatter across the realms. He remembers that after losing his power in that battle, he became a weak fugitive wandering through endless dimensions, but he endured, driven only by the desire for revenge. Marbus thinks that he has finally regained some of his power and answered the call to this strange dimension. Then the demon roars with a thunderous voice, asking who dares to summon him and who dares to propose a pact with one of the 72 demons. Marbus, the guardian of hell. Marbus sees that this place he has been summoned to is perfect for rebuilding his power and planning his revenge, so he declares his agreement and acceptance of the offer. Kang Jun looks at the demon Marbus and tells him that he remembers him now. Marbus seems confused, thinking that this voice sounds familiar. Kang Jun smiles and asks him if he was the one who ran away first at that time. Then, Marbus recognizes Kang Jun in horror and mutters, wondering if he is the immortal. Kang Jun sarcastically comments that if one lives long enough, they meet everyone again, noting that it's interesting to meet him here. He adds that it has been a long time, and he almost feels happy to see him. The terrified Marbus asks why Kang Jun is in this barren, worthless dimension. Kang Jun simply replies that this is his hometown. Immediately, Marbus changes his tone, declaring that this is a truly wonderful dimension. Meanwhile, he was thinking to himself that he was as good as dead, and that last time at least, he had a chance to flee. Marbus remembers that even with all 72 demons united, they lost like dogs, and that in his current state, there is no way he can face the immortal alone. Marbus decides to himself that he must escape while Kang Jun is distracted, and that he will reassemble his scattered brethren for revenge one day, assuring himself that it cannot end like this. Marbus immediately begins to beg, calling Kang Jun by the title, Great King of Death, but Kang Jun interrupts him, telling him to speak normally. Marbus immediately begs for his life to be spared, and swears that he was only dragged here by the summoning ritual and never intended to invade Kang Jun's homeland. He continues to beg for mercy, vowing that he will disappear forever and hide in a distant world to live quietly, forever. Kang Jun listens, and then replies that he understood. Marbus looks at him in confusion. Kang Jun repeats that he said he could go, then turns to Dolsu, saying that Sol might be waiting for them, so they should finish this and go home. Marbus enthusiastically thanks the great immortal for his boundless grace. And as he turns to leave, Kang Jun suddenly remembers what he read in the 365-day parenting guide, which states that pets greatly help in a child's emotional development, and that those who grow up with pets tend to have higher IQs and greater empathy. As Marbus was trying to withdraw cautiously, announcing that he would leave now, Kang Jun stops him again, telling him to wait. Marbus freezes in place and nervously asks what he wants. Kang Jun looks at him and simply orders him to bark. Marbus is stunned and asks in disbelief what he means. Kang Jun repeats his order that he told him to bark. Marbus seethes with anger, thinking to himself how the immortal could do this to him. The demon continues to tremble from the humiliation, and thinks how dare the immortal subject him to such a shameful act. Kang Jun looks at him coldly and tells him to try harder. In the end, Marbus gives in and lets out a loud bark, vowing to himself that he will never forget the humiliation of this day. Kang Jun comments that Marbus is good at this. The humiliated Marbus replies that it is an honor for him. Kang Jun clarifies that he is not saying that as a compliment, but that he was really like a real dog. Dolsu laughs and agrees with him, commenting that it is truly amazing how he can look like a dog. Marbus boils with anger internally, unable to believe that he has come to this situation. He, one of the 72 demons who ruled the entire demon world. Kang Jun tells Marbus that he has passed, then asks him if he can transform. Marbus asks in confusion what he should transform into. Kang Jun thinks for a moment, wondering what kind of puppy a 3-year-old girl might like. Marbus panics internally, thinking that he is a demon among demons, that he gained fame for his overwhelming power and extreme cruelty, and that he was nicknamed the Guardian of Hell, and ruled at the top of the demon world with his 72 brethren, only to find himself now transformed into a small, chubby corgi, panting and wondering about his form, not believing what he is doing to himself. Kang Jun comments that he is certainly cute, but there is something a little off. Dolsu intervenes, saying that, with all due respect, wouldn't this be sufficient as a pet? But Kang Jun disagrees, commenting that he looks too weak, and that his legs seem a bit short, which might mean his movement would be weak. Dolsu replies that his insides are a completely different beast anyway, so why not prioritize what Her Highness, Sol, would prefer? Marbus, in the corgi form, thinks to himself how dare these insolent fools belittle him, and that he will never forget the humiliation of this day, and will get his revenge one day. Kang Jun coldly orders him to try something else. The trembling Marbus agrees. Marbus transforms into a fluffy white Pomeranian. Kang Jun orders to see the next one. He then transforms into a long-haired dog. Kang Jun repeats his request to see the next one. He transforms into a dachshund. With an even more annoyed look, Kang Jun orders to see the next one. Marbus returns to the corgi form, so Kang Jun asks him if he has a problem with this. Marbus replies, wondering in disbelief who he means, and if he is the one being spoken to. Kang Jun confirms that he means him. Marbus quickly thinks that it's impossible he would dare. Kang Jun's eyes narrow as he orders to see the next form. Marbus desperately transforms into a small Doberman. Kang Jun's face suddenly lights up and he shows his admiration. He declares that this is the best one yet, and leans down to pet the Doberman's head. Marbus thinks angrily how dare he pet him, one of the 72 demons and a leading force in the demon world, as if he were just a dog. And as Kang Jun continues to pet him, Marbus thinks that this touch is kind of nice and that he wants to wag his tail. Dalsu comments that he thinks this would be the perfect compromise between Kang Jun's taste, seeking power, and Sol's taste, who would love something cute, and that he thinks Her Highness the Princess will love it too. Kang Jun holds the Doberman Marbus and asks Kim Bong-gu for his opinion. Kim Bong-gu replies in amazement that he looks really great. Kang Jun says that it's time to go back, holding Marbus in his arms. Marbus thinks that he feels extremely humiliated, but he wonders why he feels satisfied. And as Kang Jun and Dalsu turn to leave, Kim Bong-gu calls out to them, apologizing and calling him sir. Kang Jun asks him if he is calling him. Kim Bong-gu confirms and begins to speak. Kim Bong-gu suggests that it would be better to collect the body before leaving to handle this matter smoothly. Kang Jun asks him for clarification on the meaning of handling. Kim Bong-gu explains that this is a major incident related to the Anti-Bureau of Management Union, and that the Bureau of Management will definitely investigate the matter thoroughly. Kang Jun thinks to himself that he hates troublesome incidents, and that he especially hates receiving unnecessary attention or focus. Kang Jun continues to speak, telling Kim Bong-gu that he was amazing back there and saved his life. Kang Jun thinks to himself that he is not a hunter anyway. Kim Bong-gu asks in confusion for clarification. Kim Bong-gu asks, feigning confusion, what he means. Kang Jun touches Kim Bong-gu's shoulder and explains that he was referring to how Kim Bong-gu personally stepped forward and eliminated this evil and terrible criminal with a single blow, only to be interrupted by a shocked Kim Bong-gu wondering if he really did that. Kang Jun looks at Kim Bong-gu, who now seems completely confused with complex mathematical equations appearing in the background, and tells him that he has been through a lot. Kim Bong-gu, sweating profusely, replies that he was just doing what he had to do. Kang Jun pats Kim Bong-gu on the shoulder and tells him that he admires his sharp attitude. Then Kang Jun announces that it is time to go, and a glowing blue portal opens on the blood-stained altar. The three, Kang Jun carrying Marbus, Dalsu, and Kim Bong-gu, pass through the portal. Outside the gate entrance, Kim Bong-gu was talking to an official from the Bureau of Management. The official comments that what happened was like a bolt from the blue, and that he is happy everyone returned without serious injuries. The official tells Kim Bong-gu that he has just received the results of the body's identification, and it has been confirmed to be a killer from the Anti-Bureau of Management Union, who was on the wanted list. He explains that the Gate Special Investigations Division will form a special team to investigate, and that they will ask him, Kim Bong-gu, to give an additional testimony later, to which Kim Bong-gu reluctantly agrees. The official adds that once the investigation is over, the incident will be announced in the media. Kim Bong-gu repeats the word with concern, wondering if the matter will really be announced. Kim Bong-gu looks at the paramedics carrying the covered body on a stretcher and thinks that if it weren't for Mr. Kang Jun, they would have been the ones who ended up as lifeless bodies. The official changes the subject and asks Mr. Kim Bong-gu if he has had a second awakening recently. Kim Bong-gu seems confused. The official explains that it is written in the report that Kim Bong-gu is the one who single-handedly eliminated the hunter from the Anti-Bureau of Management Union. Kim Bong-gu nervously replies that he was lucky. The official advises him that excessive modesty can sometimes be a poison and reveals to him that the man he killed had a bounty on him. Kim Bong-gu is surprised to hear the word bounty. The official confirms that the bounty on his head alone was in the hundreds of millions, and that the Bureau of Management will likely reward him. The official continues to excite Kim Bong-gu, adding that he will likely receive calls from major guilds, and that once the incident is announced, Mr. Kim Bong-gu will become a star overnight. The official imagines the headlines that might be about the national hero and C-rank rookie, Kim Bong-gu, who eliminated an A-rank killer with a single blow, and he asks him if he can already imagine the headlines. Kim Bong-gu thinks to himself that this matter is getting completely out of control, but he admits to himself that Kang Jun truly saved his life. Meanwhile, Kang Jun and Dalsu were standing in front of a tteokbokki food truck. Dalsu was panting and fanning his mouth with his hand, wondering if this food was this spicy. Kang Jun tells him not to force himself to eat it. Dalsu replies that he can't feel his tongue, but Kim Bong-gu was watching them from a distance, wondering about that person's true identity. Dalsu continues to eat, commenting that his hands won't stop, and that this food must have been made by a demon, otherwise there is no way he could stop amidst this suffering. Meanwhile, Kim Bong-gu thinks that Kang Jun subdued an A-rank killer without lifting a finger. Kang Jun, who is holding Marbas in Doberman form, asks Dalsu if they were the ones who made this food, to which Dalsu naturally denies it. Kim Bong-gu remembers how the boss monster was pathetically begging for his life. Kim Bong-gu wonders, why would someone like him disguise himself as a porter? At that moment, Kang Jun suggests to Dalsu that they try the spicy stir-fried chicken noodles next time because they are dozens of times more delicious than the tteokbokki. Kim Bong-gu wonders if Kang Jun is a criminal on the run from the Bureau of Management, but he dismisses the idea because if he were, he would have killed him. Dalsu gets excited, wondering about the existence of food dozens of times more delicious than this demonic dish, and that he is already looking forward to it. Kim Bong-gu concludes in his thoughts that Kang Jun seems to be at least S rank, and Kim Bong-gu thinks that, although he can't guess his true identity, he must become that person's disciple, no matter what it takes, to become much stronger than he is now, and to get his hands on the elixir. Later, Kim Bong-gu approaches Kang Jun and Dalsu and gives Kang Jun an envelope containing money. Kang Jun asks him if he gave him too much. Kim Bong-gu replies that this is more than what he promised, but adds that Kang Jun saved his life after all. Kang Jun accepts the money, saying he will use it well, and if fate allows them to meet again, perhaps he will return the favor. As Kang Jun and Dalsu turn to leave, Kim Bong-gu stops them, asking for a moment and explaining that he would at least like to buy him a meal. Kang Jun refuses, saying that his family is waiting for him, and suggests it be another time. Kim Bong-gu thinks desperately that he can't let this opportunity slip away, and calls Kang Jun sir. He begs him for just one glass of soju, or an hour, or even just 30 minutes. Kang Jun suddenly stops, in a state of shock, and asks him in shock if he just said soju. A sparkling bottle of soju appears in the scene as Kim Bong-gu hesitantly confirms that he thinks so. Kang Jun confirmed that this was the soju in question and thought that Earth indeed had soju. He remembered that when he ruled the continent of Anox as emperor, he had tried all the famous alcoholic beverages that existed then, yet none of them matched the taste of soju. He recalled his attempts that lasted for years to recreate it, but he also remembered that the matter was completely beyond his skill. Back in the present, Kang Jun agreed to Kim Bong-gu's proposal and told him that they would have this glass of soju together. Everyone moved to the Grandma's Hangover Soup restaurant. Inside, Kang Jun took a shot of soju and sighed with relief, noting that this was the taste he had missed. On the opposite side, Dalsu was eating gukbap soup enthusiastically, exclaiming that it was the real deal, describing the sensation as hot, delicious, and spicy to the point of being like diving into lava and wondering to himself when was the last time a vampire lord had tasted blood. Dalsu continued to show his admiration, asserting that the taste was demonic and indescribably good, while Kim Bong-gu watched them, thinking that they were acting as if they hadn't tasted soju or hangover soup in 10 years, wondering if he should bring more. Both Kang Jun and Dalsu enthusiastically nodded in agreement, making Bong-gu think that they must have gone through a real hell. Bong-gu called the restaurant owner and asked her for an extra bottle of soju and another bowl of gukbap. Then Dalsu turned to the elderly woman and called her old woman, asserting that he appreciated her sacrifice, but he wondered what could be more important than her health, and begged her to take it easy and take care of herself. The woman looked at him in astonishment, and asked him if she knew him, then added coolly that if he was trying to flirt with her, he should stop and just eat. Dalsu felt offended and told her not to worry, while he looked at the red soup and thought that he would not waste a single bite of this meal, which he considered the fruit of her priceless sacrifice, while the lady wondered to herself what the hell he was talking about. Dalsu continued his thoughts, convinced that offering her blood to make such a dish and then acting so nonchalantly made her a saint in every sense of the word. Bong-gu noticed that Dalsu seemed moved and wondered if he was actually crying, thinking that he must have had a tough life. Meanwhile, Kang Jun, who was busy eating and drinking, turned towards Bong-gu and asked him why he wasn't eating. The latter replied that he was eating slowly, then politely corrected his name, explaining that he was called Bong-gu. Kang Jun told him not to use the title Sir, and to simply call him Kang Jun, to which Bong-gu agreed. After that, Bong-gu asked Kang Jun if he would consider taking him as his disciple. Kang Jun repeated the word in astonishment, then answered with a cold, categorical refusal. Bong-gu seemed disappointed but not surprised, thinking to himself that it was just as he had thought, and began to explain that he was an F-rank hunter. Kang Jun interrupted him as he lifted the soup bowl, saying that he couldn't stand sad stories, but he would listen to it only as payment for this meal. Bonggu was surprised and asked curiously if he was serious. Bonggu explained that he could never quit hunting, because between his sister's tuition fees, living expenses, and his mother's hospital bills, there was no other job that paid enough. He added that in order to cure his mother, he needed the healing remedy, the elixir. Then Kang Jun repeated the word in surprise, wondering about the elixir. He thought to himself that if he meant what he was thinking, there must be 12 bottles of it stored in the imperial treasury in Anox. Bonggu continued his confession, saying that he knew it was a distant dream, but he also knew that with the elixir, one could set their price as they wished. He added that the elixir is so rare that it is sold for tens or even hundreds of billions, and that it cannot be bought with money. As he was speaking, Kang Jun, who was drinking the soup, suddenly began to choke. Kang Jun coughed violently as he looked at Dolsu, who was still enjoying his meal, and muttered that he should have brought one with him, adding that Dolsu usually carries a lot of junk, and he could have at least packed one of those bottles. Kim Bonggu was asking Kang Jun what he had said, explaining that he didn't hear well, but Kang Jun ignored the question, merely saying it was nothing. Bonggu continued speaking as he poured the drink, explaining that there was no other way to get the elixir except to get it himself, and so he had no choice but to continue raiding gates. Then Kang Jun asked him if he had done that using his body alone. Bonggu confirmed this, explaining that he had almost died several times, and that he had been bedridden for months due to injuries, but despite that, he kept trying and somehow managed to get promoted to C rank. Kang Jun commented that Bonggu's life sounded like a novel. Bonggu wondered if he really thought so, and added that before the gates appeared, everyone was happy, and for that reason, he had to keep fighting until his last breath to regain that happiness. Bonggu began to cry, moved. Kang Jun looked at him silently, while Bonggu called his name, saying that he really needed to get stronger as quickly as possible because his mother didn't have much time left. He then begged him to take him as his disciple, asking for just one chance and asserting that he would do anything asked of him. Kang Jun called him Bong Po and asked him why a grown man was crying in front of everyone. Bonggu apologized, correcting him that his name was Bonggu, but Kang Jun told him to stop crying and to straighten his shoulders and be proud. Bonggu stood up straight, responding enthusiastically, thinking to himself that he would just be Bong Po. But Kang Jun called him a new name, Bong Tai, and asked him if he was really ready to do anything asked of him. Bonggu enthusiastically confirmed that of course he would do absolutely anything, thinking to himself that Bong Tai was a good name too. Kang Jun warned him that it wouldn't be easy, and began to list the tasks: cleaning, doing laundry, cooking, taking care of children, and walking the dog, then asked him if he thought he could handle all that. Bonggu thought in amazement that these tasks seemed strangely specific, but he immediately agreed, saying he could do everything. Kang Jun said that was good, because it would lighten his sister's burden a little, as she works hard every day. Then he added that he also wanted to borrow his identity, which shocked Bonggu, who wondered what he meant by identity. Kang Jun explained that he meant his awakened registration card, pointing out that this way he could save on registration fees. Inwardly, Kang Jun thought about his plan, saying that he would book gate raids in Bonggu's name, go with him as a porter, and handle the monsters himself. This way, money wouldn't be a concern. He continued to think that even if he cleared high-rank gates, he could avoid fame and all the hassle. He concluded his thought that after all, Bong Pal could become famous in his place, then asked Bonggu again if he thought he could do it. In a later scene outside, Marbus was in Doberman form when two women approached him. One commented that he was insanely cute, while the other wondered where his owner was. Marbus thought arrogantly, despising their audacity, wondering how they dared to treat him like an ordinary dog without knowing who he was. One of them said she just wanted to pet him, while the other wondered if Dobermans weren't fierce. The first replied that he seemed very cute, then she bent down and asked if she could pet him a little. He thought to himself with disdain, telling them to get away immediately. But the woman started petting him anyway, expressing her surprise at how soft he was, and the other added with admiration that he seemed to be enjoying it. At that moment, Marbus was wagging his tail despite his anger, thinking about his humiliation. The woman offered him a bone-shaped treat, explaining that she had bought it for her puppy at home, but she was giving it to him. The women left after saying goodbye, and Marbus sat alone, staring at the treat, thinking with disdain that it was just garbage. However, he decided to at least taste it out of courtesy, as it was offered to him as a tribute from humans. As soon as he tasted it, his eyes widened in shock. Marbus, in the Doberman form, began to run in circles with sheer joy, surrounded by a demonic aura as he thought of an unprecedented pleasure, calling it the pleasure of destruction and debauchery. At that moment, Kang Jun, who was watching him with Dolsu, called out to him, wondering what exactly he was doing. Kang Jun was looking at Marbus, who had taken the form of a Doberman, happily chewing on the bone, and muttered that it was okay, then told him not to worry and to continue what he was doing. Later, Kim Bong-gu had completely passed out on the restaurant table, so Kang Jun commented that this man always drinks even though he can't handle alcohol, noting that he was completely unconscious. Dol-soo was carrying Bong-gu on his back, while informing him that the latter was unconscious and asked if he should kill him, but Kang Jun, who was walking in front of him carrying Marbus, ordered him not to, but to take him home. As they walked, it occurred to Dol-soo that Lady Subin, Kang Jun's sister, might not be pleased with this, but Kang Jun replied that they couldn't just leave the man lying in the street. As Bong-gu groaned in his sleep on Dol-soo's back, the latter noted that he seemed to be having a terrible nightmare, and thought that it might be cleaner to grant him eternal rest, but Kang Jun scolded him in a serious tone, telling him not to repeat that. Then Kang Jun placed his hand on the sleeping Bong-gu's forehead, noting that he needed real care, and adding that showing him his happiest memories wasn't a bad thing. Then Dol-soo realized the type of magic and asked if it was the art of dreams, and it came to his mind that it was the special black magic of witches, which allows them to manipulate dreams as they wish, marveling that humans couldn't master it. But his master of course succeeded. Kang Jun replied that he had only made a slight modification to it. After that, Bong-gu began to calm down and sleep peacefully on Dol-soo's back, while Kang Jun thought that Bong-gu's real life was hell, so at least he could have a happy dream. Inside the dream, Bong-gu found himself as a child, wondering in surprise why that was. Then his father appeared and placed his hand on his head, telling him that with a little training he would become better than his father in no time. The young Bong-gu looked at him in shock, wondering if he was really his father. The father smiled and told him that he had grown up a lot already, while Bong-gu thought sadly that his father had been gone for a long time. Then the father told him that if he left, he would be the man of the house. The child asked him why his father couldn't stay, but the father replied by asking him if he would bravely protect his mother and sister. The father told him that he was counting on him and apologized, so the child Bong-gu started to cry, begging him not to go, asserting that he couldn't bear it. He continued to cry, promising not to complain about coming back early from the public bath, not to complain about being bored while fishing, and not to ask him to carry him when climbing mountains. Suddenly his mother called out, announcing that dinner was ready. The scene changed to a family barbecue, where the father offered the mother some beer, while the mother commented that the food would be delicious. The father expressed his admiration for the atmosphere, saying that they should do this often. The mother agreed, saying that the children seemed really happy before calling her son, asking him to join them. The child Bong-gu looked at his family with teary eyes, whispering his parents' names. His mother asked him what was wrong and if he didn't like his favorite meal, curry rice. He replied, crying, that the food was just so delicious. Then he looked at his father, who was holding his little sister, Ju-hee, and at his mother, calling them in his heart with love. The scene changed to the adult Bong-gu sitting in the dream, thinking with determination that he would make them all feel at ease and ask them to trust him. Then he smiled in satisfaction, believing that he had become the man of the house and could take responsibility. He took a look at the memory of his happy family, wishing that they could all be happy again. In reality, Bong-gu woke up to the voice of Subin, Kang Jun's sister, calling him and telling him that she had prepared hangover soup. He woke up startled, and in the background, Dol-soo was heard asking Kang Jun if they should kill him, suggesting they let him sleep forever as he had wished. But Kang Jun wondered why he was so obsessed with killing him, and told him to wait until they woke up to eat together. Then Subin called his name again, so Bong-gu sat up, confused and trying to speak. A few moments later, he got up with difficulty, holding his head and muttering that his head hurt. On the other side of the room, Kang Jun was sitting on the floor holding his daughter Sol, and asking her gently if she had eaten again and if the food was delicious, while the child answered innocently that she had eaten and it was delicious. Bong-gu looked at this scene in complete shock, overwhelmed with confusion, wondering if he was still dreaming, and where exactly he was. Then he realized he was in Kang Jun's house, before wondering who that child he was seeing was. Kang Jun continues to caress his daughter Sol and plays a game of peekaboo with her, wondering to himself who their little princess resembles to be so cute. The child was laughing and calling out to her father enthusiastically. Kang Jun felt proud, considering her a smart girl and that she resembles her father because she is so wonderful. A moment later, Kang Jun noticed Kim Bong-gu waking up from his sleep on the floor and wondered to himself if the latter had seen the scene that had just happened. Bong-gu felt confused and confirmed that he had indeed seen it. Kang Jun's tension increased as he asked sharply how much he had seen and to what extent he had witnessed what happened, while the trembling Bong-gu replied that he began to notice from the moment the child called her father, "your princess," until the moment he described her as resembling her father. Kang Jun's face darkened as he covered his daughter's eyes with his hands, thinking that he would have to kill Bong-gu to keep his mouth shut, expressing his regret to himself. Bong-gu panicked, thinking for a moment that it was real, before realizing that it was just Kang Jun's embarrassment. However, Bong-gu hid under his pillow, trembling, wondering to himself what kind of person says something like that even as a joke, and completely convinced that Kang Jun might actually do it. Then he noticed his smell and told himself that he reeked of alcohol. At that moment, Subin opened the door and pointed out that the sun had risen and that Kang Jun had just woken up. Bonggu felt relieved that he was still alive. Subin smiled gently at him, seeming like an angel to him, thinking that he must be feeling bad, and told him that she had prepared hangover soup and invited him to eat. Bonggu was touched inside and thanked her for saving him from a confusing situation that almost cost him his life. During breakfast, Subin asked Bonggu if he was Mr. Bong Chang, so he quietly corrected her that his name was Bonggu. She apologized gently while he reassured her that it was not worth apologizing for. Bonggu thought that this was his chance to fix his bad image as a loser drunk. Then he praised Subin's cooking skills, asserting that she was amazing and it was no wonder her husband seemed satisfied and happy, while looking towards Kang Jun as the intended person. Kang Jun sharply interrupted his speech and corrected him that he was wrong, explaining that Subin was not his wife but his real sister. Then he ended the discussion coolly and invited everyone to eat. Bonggu felt embarrassed and replied to him nervously, regretting his previous words and thinking that he should have kept quiet. Subin directed her speech to Bonggu and told him that Kang Jun had told her that they were as close as brothers. Bonggu was surprised for a moment, then he realized what she meant and went along with her. Subin apologized for her sudden request, but she gently asked him to take care of Kang Jun for a while. Bonggu dropped his spoon in shock, wondering how he could be asked to take care of someone like Kang Jun. He remembered the man who had defeated an A-rank hunter alliance with a single glance, and who had tamed a boss-level demon as if it were a small puppy. He wondered to himself what taking care of him could possibly mean, while Kang Jun ate his food quietly beside him. Subin explained that the truth was that Kang Jun had been trapped inside a gate and had only returned to the outside world less than a month ago. Bonggu was stunned, remembering the headlines he had read about gate returnees and survivors, and realizing that her brother was one of these survivors mentioned in the news. He also thought that some of these high-level hunters who returned from abroad possessed mysterious powers they had acquired inside the gates. Bonggu wondered to himself if Kang Jun was one of them too. Then Kang Jun interrupted him, chewing his food, and explaining that he wasn't stuck there as others thought. Subin replied indifferently that it was about something like him being a king of a continent. Bonggu's eyes widened in surprise when he realized they were talking about a real king. Bonggu imagined a picture of Kang Jun as a great emperor. Kang Jun explained to his sister that he wasn't just a king but the emperor himself. Subin replied that she didn't see much of a difference between the two titles. Kang Jun insisted that the difference was vast and that kings didn't even dare to look him in the eye, which made Bonggu even more stunned as he repeated in his mind that he was indeed an emperor. Dalsu interjected in the conversation and asked Kang Jun if he remembered the former king of the kingdom of Baratheon. Kang Jun seemed not to recognize the name and asked who he meant. Bonggu concluded that the old man Dalsu was not an ordinary person either. Dalsu explained that he meant the man whose head was cut off after he dared to look the emperor in the eye and raised a banner of rebellion. Kang Jun remembered the incident dismissively, which made Bonggu choke in shock. Subin turned to Bonggu, explaining that what Kang Jun was going through could be considered a kind of after effect, and added that he needed some time to readjust to society. Bonggu confirmed that he understood, thinking that everything was starting to make sense now. Bonggu's eyes lit up as he thought excitedly that Kang Jun possessed that prestige and power because he was an emperor in the past. Then he asked Dalsu if he had held a position similar to prime minister at that time. Dalsu replied that he was a strategist in that era. Bonggu couldn't tell if he was being sincere or just going along with the mood. Subin asked Bonggu to help Kang Jun readjust to normal life. Bonggu enthusiastically agreed, asserting that he would do his best. Subin thanked him gratefully. Then she turned to Dalsu and gently asked him if he had ever thought about getting a part-time job. Dalsu seemed confused and asked her in astonishment what this job she was talking about meant, as he didn't know what it was. Subin explains that the owner of the grocery store they frequent in front of the house is looking for help. She adds that she mentioned Dalsu by chance, and the owner said he should come for an interview. Dalsu expresses his deep gratitude to Lady Subin, explaining that he has a sacred duty to serve his master and cannot leave his side for even a moment. Kang Jun interrupts with a refusal. Kang Jun simply orders Dalsu to accept the job, pointing out that it is painful to have him following him everywhere. He thinks to himself that he will make him accept the grocery store job to get used to Earth's culture, remembering his previous exaggerated moments. He also adds that this work, even if it doesn't pay much, will help them with their finances. Dalsu protests, reminding his master of his promise to establish his glorious empire on Earth. Kang Jun agrees that he did indeed promise that, but he explains that achieving this goal requires a deep understanding of this dimension's culture and the lives of its people. He asserts that he is not asking him to abandon his duties as a strategist, but is trusting him and delegating to him all matters related to the founding of their nation. Dalsu suddenly realizes that his master is testing his loyalty, so he prostrates himself on the ground dramatically, begging his master to grant him death and pass judgment on him. Kang Jun is annoyed by the situation and tells him to calm down. Dalsu continues his dramatic speech, confessing that he failed to understand his master's deep will and that he is not even worthy to look upon his noble face. Kang Jun replies indifferently. Dalsu vows to dedicate himself to the investigation with his entire being until his body crumbles and his bones turn to dust. Kang Jun turns to Subin and tells her that Dalsu is going for the interview. She replies in the affirmative. The scene ends with Dalsu prostrating himself, with a caption describing how Shartia von de Kremsley, the old man Choi Dalsu, decided to challenge employment in the second chapter of his life. Later, Kim Bong-gu is seen washing dishes in the kitchen. Subin comments on the matter to Kang Jun that she knows he is their guest, but she is surprised that he is making him wash the dishes. Kang Jun explains that he was the one who insisted on doing it, and asks her to rest a little. Subin wonders if this is really appropriate, to which Kang Jun comments that Bong-gu is surprisingly good at washing dishes. Subin watches the news on TV and wonders if this means that an increase in the number of people in a certain area increases the probability of gates appearing. The newscaster on the news explains that what is meant is the high frequency of gate appearances in Seoul and the surrounding Gyeonggi area. The expert confirms this, adding that residents of these urban areas must remain on constant alert. He explains that new gates tend to absorb all forms of life within a 1 to 2 kilometer radius when they appear, which requires constant readiness. The expert adds that the academic community believes there is a high probability of a gate appearing in the area south of the Han River in Seoul, and that countermeasures are being planned for it. Subin gasps and realizes that their house is also in the Gangnam area, so she expresses her concern, wondering what they will do if a gate appears. Kang Jun reassures her that nothing will happen. At that moment, the child Sol runs towards him, calling for her father. Sol runs directly towards Marbus, who is in the form of a chihuahua, and hugs him enthusiastically, trying to kiss him. Kang Jun intervenes in a stern tone, stopping his daughter from doing so. He explains to her that this dog is dirty and disgusting, and that if she kisses it, she might get hurt. In his mind, he imagines himself brutally beating Marbus, angry at the danger he represents. Sol looks at her father in confusion, wondering if she will really get hurt. In contrast, Marbus feels terrified, wondering to himself why he is being targeted even though he has done nothing. Subin hits Kang Jun on the back and scolds him for bullying animals in front of his daughter. Kang Jun looks confused. Kang Jun looks at Marbus with annoyance, wondering if he should really consider him an animal. Then he realizes that the child sees him this way, so he decides to go along with it. Sol decides to just pet him and starts to do so. Kang Jun looks at the scene, contemplating its splendor and beauty. Subin thinks to herself as Kang Jun looks at his daughter who calls him with love. He feels his heart warm every time he looks at her. He holds her in his arms, realizing that this dangerous world is not a suitable place for her. And he admits to himself that he has no intention of playing the hero, but he wants to change this world a little at least. The next day, Kang Jun gives an envelope, likely containing money, to Subin, asking her to use it to help out. Subin opened the envelope that Kang Jun gave her and asked him how much was inside. He told her it was 5 million won. She looked surprised and asked him where he suddenly got all this money. Kang Jun claimed that he checked his bank savings out of curiosity and found this amount there, adding that he thought this money was what he had been saving little by little before he disappeared. The bank passbook showed a balance of 5 million won. Subin was moved and began to cry a little, expressing her gratitude to Kang Jun. Then she confessed that she couldn't tell him before because she didn't want to worry him, and that she had been struggling financially recently. She added that she had been suffering from utility bills, rent, and even food expenses. Subin wiped her tears and smiled, thanking him, and noting that thanks to him, she could finally breathe a little. Kang Jun asked her if she was being honest. Then he replied with a smile that he hadn't realized it before and that he was happy the money was helping her. Subin said she would cook him something delicious for dinner that night and asked him if he wanted to eat anything in particular. He simply replied that anything would be fine. Subin commented that he was very direct. Then she suggested they go grocery shopping together at the mart later, adding that while they were out, they could eat and take Seoul to a kids' cafe or a playground. But Kang Jun gently refused, explaining that he preferred to stay home and rest all day because he felt he needed some relaxation. Kang Jun thought to himself that if they all went to the mart together, perhaps Lord Kremsley would like that, and also if anything happened, the Lord would protect Subin and Seoul. So Subin said that in that case she would just go with the old man. Then Kang Jun said that he would go then, to which Subin replied that he should rest as he wished. He smiled to himself, thinking that everything was perfect. Kang Jun began to think about his destination, excited because he would finally be able to visit the place he had always wanted to go to since he first saw it. And when he arrived at the campus comic cafe, it occurred to him that perhaps a new volume of Hunter x Hunter had been released during his absence, and he continued to think that he would finally be able to read it after 300 years. Meanwhile, at the complex supermarket, Dal-Su enthusiastically called out to Lady Subin, who was pushing a shopping cart with Sol inside, announcing that he had discovered another free food sample. He expressed his astonishment at the possibility of enjoying the most delicious food without limits and without paying, considering the free sample corner to be no different from paradise itself. Subin looked on with embarrassment as Dal-Su fed Sol a food sample, who seemed happy, saying it was delicious. Then Dal-Su began to sing merrily about the unlimited enjoyment in the mart's sample corner, and Sol merrily repeated the same phrase after him. Dal-Su continued to sing and have fun with Sol in the shopping cart, repeating that the whole family was together in the mart's sample corner, and he was feeding her with a smile. Then he continued to sing about the free gourmet pleasure in that corner, while Subin sighed as she watched them near the dumpling sample counter. Then she asked the employee for 1 bag of dumplings. Suddenly, an urgent announcement echoed through the store, announcing the appearance of a large-scale gate near Silham Crossroads Station. Panic ensued among the shoppers who began to run. At the same time, in the comic cafe, Kang Jun heard 2 girls wondering if the new issue of Hunter x Hunter had been released. He was surprised that it hadn't happened yet. Then he heard a young man nearby jokingly comment that when he joined the army 3 years ago, he was sure it would be released by the time he was discharged. Kang Jun was dismayed by what he heard. Anger began to build up inside him as he thought that despite all this time, nothing had been released yet, and he heard the young man repeat, 3 whole years, huh? His frustration grew as he grumbled to himself that he had been waiting for 300 years. The young man noticed his reaction and told him that he looked like he had been through a lot. Then he changed the subject and told him that he would show him one of the most important new series that had become so successful that they even printed a special limited edition of it. Kang Jun looked at the cover of the manhwa the young man gave him, which was titled The Weakest. Became an SSS rank hunter? He thought with ridicule that the story sounded like Bonggu's story. As he flipped through the pages, he noticed that the character was as weak as Bonggu and that his home circumstances were bad, so he thought that the story was about progressing in strength and that it wasn't actually bad. But he suddenly stopped at a fight scene and wondered to himself what was happening, as he never imagined that a 9th Circle necromancer would be defeated so easily. He crossed his arms in frustration, thinking that the hero started as weak as Bonggu, but he could never defeat a necromancer of that rank in that way. Kang Jun closed the book in boredom, thinking that he should have gone to the supermarket instead, and he saw that the time he had spent there was a waste of time, and that he felt tired now, wondering when was the last time he had slept. He began to feel sleepy and thought that he had been very tired lately, so he decided that it was finally time to sleep, but he felt sorry that the nightmare curse had not yet been broken. He wished that the succubus queen, Errol, was there to ease his nightmares a little. Then he lay down and closed his eyes, wondering if his followers were still okay. Inside the supermarket shelter, the announcement continued to warn of the appearance of a large-scale gate near Silham Crossroads Station, advising all customers to evacuate to the basement shelter immediately. People were anxiously discussing Silham Crossroads, while one woman expressed fear for her friend who lives there. Subin, holding Sol, was thinking anxiously about whether Kang Jun was safe, imagining that he might be alone at home. Dal-Su tried to reassure her gently, explaining that although his words might seem intrusive, his master would be fine and there was no need to worry. Subin worriedly wondered if what he said was really true, to which Dal-Su replied with a reassuring smile, explaining that his master had long ago reached a state close to immortality, and that any ordinary weapon was no longer capable of even leaving a scratch on his body. Subin seemed surprised by his words, while Dal-Su confirmed that it was indeed an incredible thing, adding that countless scientists had tried for 100 years to find a way to grant his master eternal rest, but they all failed. Dal-Su remembered the day the emperor ordered his followers to search for a way for him to achieve eternal rest, remembering how the scientists had proposed many methods, and the first attempt was when his master jumped from the top of the world tree at the edge of the world, but only the roots were shattered. He also recalled in his memory how his master had thrown himself into the fire of hell and stayed there for a whole month without being harmed, only to come out complaining of boredom. Then he remembered that he drank a poison strong enough to kill a giant with a single drop, but instead of dying, he became healthier. Dal-Su concluded his speech with a laugh, noting that his master always returns no matter what attempts are made, wondering if this wasn't true immortality. Subin commented with a slight tone of sarcasm that he was exaggerating, then tried to convince herself that his house's location was far from Silham Crossroads, so he must be fine. Dal-Su agreed, adding that there was no need to worry as long as he didn't leave the house. But Dalsu suddenly remembered a previous conversation he had with Kang Jun, when the latter told him that he would sneak out later and asked him that if his sister asked, he should tell her he was at home. He also jokingly threatened him that if he revealed his secret, he would be punished, which made Dalsu break out in a cold sweat and assure himself that his master was definitely at home safe. Elsewhere, a woman was listening to the news that the gate had been classified as a disaster rank, while some of the attendees wondered what that meant. Another woman explained that the disaster rank is the highest threat level in the system, above danger and catastrophe, which made the attendees realize the seriousness of the situation. One of them mentioned that the office had already sent many hunters to subdue it, while others hoped they could control it. The woman explained that a disaster rank gate could wipe out an entire country, just as happened in the catastrophe that occurred 3 years ago, bringing to mind an image of a huge dragon attacking an entire city. In the shelter, Subin was holding the terrified soul, trying to calm her down, reassuring her that things would be fine, while she herself was trying to control her anxiety. Meanwhile, Kang Jun had found himself lying in a strange, snow-covered place. He wondered to himself if he was dreaming, and felt that what was happening seemed like a disturbing dream. Suddenly, a blue system window appeared before him, telling him that he had entered the dimensional gate called the Yotun Sanctuary. So he realized with surprise that he was indeed inside a gate, wondering if it had opened near the manga cafe. He remembered his sister and daughter, and reassured himself because Kremsley was with them, believing that they would be fine. He stretched his arms, restless, as he thought that this situation might be to his advantage, as he wouldn't have to pay the gate entrance fee. He smiled calmly as he thought that good things come when one least expects them, adding to himself that he would now have unlimited fun. And while the system was announcing the discovery of a new gate, 3 hours had already passed. Elsewhere inside the same gate, Kim Bong-gu and others were fighting amidst great chaos. Bong-gu grumbled about the intensity of the chaos, while the S-rank hunter, Cho Ji-hoon, nicknamed the Swift Sword, was engaged in a fierce battle against a huge ice monster carrying an axe. Bong-gu watched the scene in amazement, realizing that this ordinary monster was fighting on equal footing with one of the strongest hunters, and with the ice monster's roar. Bong-gu muttered with sarcastic admiration that this was the level of S-rank hunters. The effects of the battle were evident on the fighters, while one of the female hunters thought that everyone would have died if it weren't for the S-rank hunter. Others wondered about the number of remaining survivors, while Bong-gu sank into despair, convinced that someone like him could do nothing in a battle like this. Cho Ji-hoon finally managed to eliminate the ice monster, but he looked exhausted and injured as he leaned on his sword, realizing that dozens of monsters were still waiting for them. Bong-gu felt increasingly anxious, wondering if they could really face the boss of this gate after they were completely exhausted. Kim Bong-gu was thinking desperately that if they failed, what awaited them would be similar to what happened 3 years ago, remembering the catastrophe that had struck then. Suddenly, all the remaining ice giant monsters fell to the ground at once, which surprised Bong-gu and made him wonder in amazement how they all fell at once. Then a system window appeared, announcing the approach of the boss monster, explaining that the guardian of the Yotun Sanctuary, the frost giant Hrithers, had appeared. So Bong-gu warned his comrades that the boss monster was coming. The huge Hrithers, with his thick white beard and icy horns, appeared among the fallen hunters, introducing himself as the guardian of Niflheim and the messenger of the god whom all the Jotun serve. He approached with an angry face and announced that, before he executed those who had invaded their sanctuary, he would ask only one question. He released an immense pressure that forced the remaining hunters to kneel and asked about the whereabouts of someone named XXX. Then he violently attacked one of the hunters, apparently Cho Ji-hoon, who was trying to get up, while repeating his question about the person who entered the sanctuary with them, named 30. The terrified hunters looked at each other, not understanding what he was talking about. Hrithers unleashed a devastating ice attack and shouted, demanding that the hidden person stop hiding like a coward and show himself, threatening that just as Triple X had done before, he would slaughter every single member of their race. Bong-gu and the survivors watched the scene in horror, realizing that even Cho Ji-hoon had fallen with a single blow, and that the situation was completely hopeless. Bong-gu was staring at the giant, thinking that he couldn't die yet, and images of his mother and sister Ju-hee came to his mind, feeling that he had only just started to see a glimmer of hope in the end. He rushed with all his might towards Hrithers, shouting that he couldn't die like this, but Hrithers easily blocked his attack and threw him away, while Bong-gu fell, begging in pain. The giant raised his hand above him, saying coldly that arrogant mortals do not escape the guardian of Niflheim, while Bong-gu thought desperately that he couldn't die here. Hrithers suddenly transformed into a larger, more monstrous form, announcing that his long-awaited opponent had finally appeared. At that moment, behind him appeared hordes of undead giant monsters, their eyes glowing with a dark purple. Bong-gu stood stunned as he backed away, not believing what he was seeing, wondering if all those beings were really monsters. While he was still in a daze, he heard a voice calling him. It sounded familiar as it called his name repeatedly. Wondering if what he was seeing was really Kim Bong-gu, he looked up and saw Kang Jun sitting casually on the head of one of those undead giant monsters. He muttered in shock, stammering and wondering why he was there, to which Kang Jun replied with a calm smile that things simply turned out this way. Bong-gu felt relieved to see him, expressing his happiness that they had met again. But he quickly stopped, thinking in surprise, wondering if Kang Jun was the one who had defeated all those monsters alone. At that moment, Hrithers shouted in surprise, calling out to the monsters behind him, but those undead monsters were staring at him with a murderous hostility. It seemed that Kang Jun had somehow addressed them, wondering why their gazes were filled with killing intent towards the leader of their clan. Hrithers became furious, declaring that he was the god of all the Jotun and the messenger of the giant with sewn lips, and wondering how those beings dared to stand against him. Bong-gu then realized the truth, and understood that the person Hrithers had been searching for all along was Kang Jun himself. Hrithers turned to Kang Jun, shouting that he had copied the form of XXX, which made Bong-gu feel shocked and stunned. Hrithers continued to shout at Kang Jun, accusing him that his black magic had cursed his brethren, condemning them to a fate where they couldn't even find eternal rest. Bong-gu felt the immense pressure that emanated from Hrithers, and he looked stunned as he realized the extent of his destructive power. Hrithers screams in anger, vowing that he will never forgive XXX, Kang Jun. Kim Bong-gu screams in terror, warning Kang Jun that he must escape, reminding him that this monster crushed a hunter ranked in the top 10 in an instant. But Kang Jun stands calmly amidst the swirling snow and wonders why he should run away when he can enjoy this endlessly. Bong-gu is shocked. Kang Jun confidently walks towards Hrithers, passing his army of undead giants that he had summoned. Hrithers asks in surprise if Kang Jun knows him. Kang Jun replies that it's not exactly a title he likes, but he is surprised that Hrithers even knows him. Kang Jun confirms the giant's identity using the title XXX. Hrithers confirms his knowledge of Kang Jun, wondering how he could not know him. He reveals that the god whom all monsters worship, even the giant with sewn lips, is watching him. Bong-gu trembles as he watches the scene, thinking that even if it is Kang Jun himself, this is a god. Hrithers adds that that's not all. He continues that every divine realm is watching him, he who has earned the title of XXX. Kang Jun wonders to himself when that started. Kang Jun thinks that, after watching countless so-called absolute beings and self-proclaimed rulers of their worlds fall before him without even lasting a few blows, and tired of a life close to immortality, he repeatedly prayed for the existence of a god. Kang Jun approaches Hrithers and asks him mockingly if he thinks a god can be stronger than him. Hrithers shouts, warning him not to blaspheme before the messenger of the giant with sewn lips. Kang Jun replies indifferently to tell his god that if they ever meet, he is dead. Kang Jun raises his hand and begins to gather immense dark purple energy. He unleashes the energy, which flows towards the army of undead giants and engulfs them. Hrithers looks on in shock and asks what the hell this is. Hrithers watches in horror, as the bodies of the undead giants heal and merge to form a huge, terrifying monster made of different parts. Kang Jun stands before the newly formed creature and asks Hrithers again if he still thinks his god is stronger than him. The stunned Hrithers mutters, wondering how such a power can exist. Kang Jun repeats his question if he still thinks that pathetic god can defeat him. Hrithers screams in pain. The patchwork golem delivers a powerful punch to Hrithers. Bong-gu and the other hunter watch from a distance. The other hunter asks if he is dead. Bong-gu tells him not to say such things because it brings bad luck. Then he thinks that this is the same spell Kang Jun used before to bring back the dead, and that it is definitely the resurrection spell. The patchwork golem continues to brutally beat Hrithers. Kang Jun comments that it is somewhat like playing with slime. Bong-gu repeats in surprise. Kang Jun thinks that at this point, it must be just a mush. Kang Jun explains that this is a play activity for infants, good for sensory and creative development, and that he just applied a similar principle here. He explains the principle, which is to mix the ingredients evenly, stir with magic, harden it a bit, then shape it as desired, and knead it like dough. Kang Jun stands before the huge patchwork golem and the destruction it has left behind, and asks Bong-gu for his opinion, explaining that he made this patchwork golem inspired by that creature. Bong-gu replies, stunned. Kang Jun stands with the stunned Kim Bong-gu beside him and asks for his opinion. Bong-gu nervously replies that it gives off a very classic feel. Kang Jun enthusiastically interrupts him, saying that Bong-gu has a good eye, and praises him for his analysis not quite Renaissance, not exactly Baroque, but avant-garde with a touch of Scandinavian aesthetic, and asks him if he majored in art by any chance. Then Kang Jun turns to the remains of the defeated Hrithers and tells him that, after all that bragging, it turns out he was nothing special, commenting that, the weak always talk a lot. Bong-gu thinks in amazement how Kang Jun managed to kill that monster so easily, Kang Jun replies indifferently that he wouldn't have lasted a few blows anyway. The patchwork golem is shown disintegrating and returning to purple energy. Bonggu gasps and mutters that Kang Jun is truly exceptional. Bonggu thinks that His Imperial Majesty must be truly exceptional, and he thinks that otherwise there is no way he could destroy everything with just a flick of his hand. Suddenly, a system window appears before Kang Jun, announcing, "Level up," and other windows appear. "You have killed the guardian of the Jotun Sanctuary, Frost Giant Hrythers. The Jotun tribe's gate sanctuary will disappear in 1 hour." The system windows continue to appear. A-rank achievement unlocked, the one feared by all giants. Hrythers' patron god, the giant with sewn lips, now holds animosity towards you. All gods of the Asgard constellation now hold animosity towards you. Your existence as XXX grows stronger. Kang Jun reacts to the windows and thinks that if they have a problem, they can come and find him. Then another surprising window appears, stating that the summoning condition for the bound follower, Errol, has been met. The window continues that he can now summon his follower, Errol. Kang Jun's eyes widen and he thinks that he can summon Errol. Kang Jun extends his hand and calls the queen of the succubi, Errol, asking her to answer his call. A glowing purple summoning circle appears before him. A winged female figure emerges from the circle. The stunned Bonggu asks Kang Jun about this. The summoned woman bows and asks if this is truly her master. She wonders if he is really her master. Bonggu recognizes her in shock, describing her as beautiful. Kang Jun asks her how she has been. Errol rushes towards Kang Jun and hugs him tightly, crying and calling him her master. She asks him how on earth this happened, and she adds that, for the past several decades, she thought he had entered eternal rest. Kang Jun replies that he thought so too, but many things happened. Errol examines Kang Jun's face with concern and asks him if he is suffering from any discomfort. She explains that she is worried, as the sparkle in his eyes and the gloss on his lips seem to have faded. A side note indicates that the terms used for eyes and lips are old and formal. Kang Jun replies that he is fine. Then he asks her to step back a little. Errol quickly steps away and apologizes. Errol kneels formally and announces that Errol, minister of the imperial household, greets her master. Kang Jun tells her to skip the formalities and asks her how things have been. Errol replies that, after he and the archdukes entered eternal rest, everyone remained in their positions and continued to work without change. And she adds that Nazgul, who previously held the position of Minister of Military Affairs, was overseeing state affairs in his stead. Kang Jun says that he sees that everyone is fine, then he orders her to stand, and he thinks that Kremsley came to Earth with him, so Nazgul is indeed the most suitable for the Emperor's throne. Errol corrects herself, apologizing for her rudeness, and asks about the Archduke who chose to undergo the Sunjang and enter eternal rest beside him. A side note explains that Sunjang is an ancient practice of burying servants alive with their deceased ruler. Kang Jun asks if she means Kremsley, and he replies that she went grocery shopping with his sister. Errol replies in confusion, asking for clarification. Kang Jun says not to worry about it, and that she is fine anyway, and he suggests that they discuss the rest on their way back. Errol agrees. Kang Jun turns to Bonggu with a smile and calls him his only disciple, the great Bonggu. Bonggu replies nervously and thinks about what he is about to say. Kang Jun tells him that he snuck out, so he must return before his sister comes back, and he asks him if he can leave the cleanup to him. Then he cheerfully announces that it is time for him to disappear, and begins to count. And before he can finish, Bonggu calls out in panic, asking him to wait. Kang Jun and Errol disappear in a flash of stars. Bonggu stands alone amidst the ice and destruction and looks around, wondering if he can really clean this up like he did last time. Meanwhile, near Silum Station, the authorities had set up a security cordon around the area where the gate appeared. A man who appears to be a high-ranking official, identified as Bureau Chief Seo Do-cheol, asks to review the list of hunters included in the first raid team. His assistant replies in the affirmative. Bureau Chief Seo Do-cheol stands at the police cordon near Silum Station and asks how many personnel are currently on site. His assistant replies that a total of 20 hunters have been deployed. The chief asks if there is anyone noteworthy other than Hunter Cho Ji-hoon. The assistant replies that other than Ji-hoon, it is a standard A-rank raid team and lists some prominent names like Yu Sung-ha and Ju Hyun. The chief mutters thoughtfully. The assistant adds that finally, a promising C-rank rookie was also deployed with the first raid team. The chief asks in surprise about him being C-rank. The assistant explains that he is the rookie who recently subdued an A-rank killer from the Anti-Bureau of Management Union at the Guro Digital Complex Station Gate. The chief remembers that boy. He thinks, wondering about his name, which he has forgotten. Then the chief mutters to himself with regret, commenting that he thought he was very promising and what a shame. The assistant explains that they were deployed before the gate's danger level was fully measured, so their forces were not properly prepared. The chief orders that for the sake of those who bought them time with their sacrifices, They must prevent any secondary damage, no matter the cost. The assistant replies in the affirmative. The chief looks at the glowing red gate in front of him with sorrow and wonders how long he must stand and watch the souls of young people be sacrificed, expressing his extreme weariness of this. Suddenly the gate begins to shrink and fluctuate. The chief thinks in amazement before realizing that the gate is disappearing. The chief wonders to himself if they have actually succeeded. The gate disappears completely, leaving behind a street full of collapsed and injured hunters. The onlookers cheer in amazement, expressing their astonishment at seeing the hunters, and declaring that they did it, and that the disaster class gate has been cleared. One of the assistants notices a conscious survivor there. The chief and his assistants run towards the exhausted Kim Bong-gu. Bong-gu looks at them and mutters with difficulty, continuing that he was just. The assistant confirms to the chief that this is the one, describing Bong-gu as the rising C-rank rookie, the devoted son, Hunter Kim Bong-gu. A news bulletin appears on the TV, announcing that it has been officially announced that the disaster class gate that appeared near Sillam Station around 4 p.m. today has been successfully cleared. The news begins with a report that Chief Seo Do-cheol began his statement by saying that this result was achieved thanks to the hunters who risked their lives and made sacrifices for the peace and well-being of the nation. At Kang Jun's house, he asks his sister Subin when dinner will be ready. Subin replies that it's almost done and asks if he's hungry. Kang Jun replies no, explaining that he's not hungry. Subin tells him that dinner will be ready in a minute and that he should wait. Kang Jun thinks with annoyance and wonders how long he has to continue in this situation. Kang Jun was sitting on the floor playing with his daughter Sol with a cash register toy. Sol shouts enthusiastically, calling her father and demanding that he do it again. Kang Jun asks her wearily if she's not tired of this yet. Sol replies no, asserting that she's having fun. Then Sol asks if her father isn't having fun. Kang Jun replies with a strained voice that he's having fun too. Kang Jun looks at the Dr. Smarty Pants cash register toy in front of him and thinks that of all the toys in the world, why did she have to buy him this abominable thing? He screams in his imagination, wondering if the manufacturer has any idea of the amount of suffering this toy has caused to humanity. Sol announces in a cheerful voice, welcoming the customer. Kang Jun replies with feigned seriousness and asks for 1 carton of milk. Sol tells him the price is 8,000 won. Kang Jun asks her in disbelief if that's for just 1 carton of milk. Sol repeats that the price is 8,000. Kang Jun addresses his daughter seriously, telling her that he admires her sharp sense of profit, but he thinks this price gouging is excessive. He adds that he had hoped she could adjust the price of the milk, even a little. Sol shouts with childish anger, insisting that the price is 8,000. Kang Jun gives up and sighs and takes out the play money, giving her the 8,000 won and saying goodbye. Sol happily takes the money and asks to do it again. Errol, who was watching them silently, looks at Kang Jun, who repeatedly mutters the word. Kang Jun wonders how much time has passed as they have been playing this cash register game for 3 hours straight, repeating the meaningless cycle of buying and returning things hundreds of times. Errol asks Dalsu, who was also watching, if this isn't a truly terrifying scene, and that she never imagined that such a grueling game, requiring such patience and perseverance, could exist in this world. Errol enthusiastically agrees with Dalsu, saying that she completely agrees with his feelings. Dalsu adds that what makes it even more terrifying is that once the princess finds something she enjoys, she won't stop until she collapses from complete exhaustion, commenting that in this perseverance, she certainly resembles her master. Marbas, in Doberman form, thinks that as expected of the immortal's lineage, the princess was born with fierce perseverance and cruelty, wondering bitterly if she realizes that he is forced to play the same game with her for long hours every day. Dalsu suggests naming the game the Cash Register Game of the Ages and asks the others for their opinion. Errol praises the name, considering it exceptionally fitting. Marbas thinks sarcastically that the old vampire is better at naming things than he looks. Errol adds a warning that one never knows when they might face the judgment of that game themselves, so it is wise to always stay vigilant. Kang Jun is shown staring at them with annoyance, thinking that he can hear everything. Dalsu, Errol, and Marbas freeze in their places. Subin calls from the kitchen, announcing that dinner is ready. Sol jumps from Kang Jun's lap, shouting that she doesn't want to eat and demanding to play more. Subin scolds her, saying that she must eat her food. Sol repeats her refusal and insistence on playing. Subin asks her if she will continue to be stubborn. Kang Jun smiles and thinks, encouraging his sister. Subin gently suggests that in that case, Sul can ask her father to play again after she finishes her food. Kang Jun is shocked and wonders about his sister's stance. Sul innocently asks her father if they can play again after eating. Kang Jun clutches his chest in pain and admits defeat to the princess. Sul calls her father. Kang Jun completely surrenders and agrees to play again after eating. The family, Kang Jun, Subin, Dalsu, Errol, sits down to a seemingly lavish dinner. Kang Jun comments that they have prepared enough to break the table. Subin asks Errol about her identity. Errol asks for Her Majesty's, Subin's permission, and asks to be allowed to formally introduce herself again. She introduces herself as Errol, the minister of the imperial household who used to serve her master in the imperial palace. Subin replies with slight bewilderment that she understands. She whispers to Kang Jun that she thinks Errol is still very sick. Kang Jun reassures her that Errol is perfectly fine. Subin thinks that her body seems fine, but her mind. Then she asks Errol how she contacted Kang Jun and ended up at their home. Errol begins to explain, but Kang Jun quickly interrupts her, saying that they met by chance today. He thinks to himself that it's a good thing he returned before his sister and ordered her to transform, imagining her original demonic form. Subin asks in surprise if Kang Jun went out today. Kang Jun quickly replies that he just went to the nearby grocery store and by chance. Subin scolds him seriously, reminding him of the huge chaos that occurred due to the disaster rank gate. She wonders what she would do if he wandered outside like that, even if it was nearby. Kang Jun apologizes, saying it's his fault. Meanwhile, Dalsu was taking notes in his notebook, writing about how Lady Subin scolded His Majesty for going out without permission, and how His Majesty replied dejectedly like a small child. Kang Jun sharply calls his name twice. Kang Jun glares at Dalsu as he bends a spoon with his power and asks him his age again. Dalsu replies that he is over 1,200 years old. Kang Jun sarcastically comments that he has lived long enough. Dalsu clears his throat in embarrassment. Subin tells them to stop. Then Subin asks Errol where she is currently staying. Errol replies hesitantly. Subin comments with concern, wondering if she has no place to stay. Errol admits that it's humiliating to admit, but she hasn't been able to secure a residence yet. Subin says in shock that she can't believe it, a young and beautiful woman alone in this dangerous world. Subin suggests to Errol that for now she should stay here with them. Errol objects, wondering how she can impose herself on the imperial family. Subin asks her if she would prefer to be homeless in this dangerous world. Errol hesitates. Subin addresses Miss Errol and begins to say something hesitantly, but she stammers. Errol looks at her questioningly. Subin suddenly shouts that it's an imperial order. Errol immediately prostrates herself, announcing her agreement and obedience to the order. Subin stands confused and asks her to get up. Errol replies in the affirmative. Subin thinks as she tries to suppress her laughter about the imperial order. Kang Jun orders her to stop laughing. Subin asks him why as he suppresses his own laughter. Kang Jun comments that she is very good at it. Subin whispers to him to be quiet. Subin changes the subject, asking if she heard that the gate disappeared. She adds that she was shocked to hear a disaster rank gate appeared. Another news bulletin appears, stating that it has been announced that 16 hunters were killed in action due to the disaster rank gate that appeared today. It adds that, of the 6 survivors from the gate, 5 are unconscious. Subin thinks that it's still a relief that they subdued it quickly, expressing her sorrow for those who died. The news mentions that this is the second time a disaster rank gate has appeared in the country. It continues that it is considered of great significance that, unlike the last incident, they succeeded in subduing it with the least number of casualties. Subin thinks that Seoul could have been turned to ashes, and that many people might have died. Kang Jun reassures her that that will never happen, and not to worry. He assures her that he will protect her and Seoul. Subin watches the news again, where Kim Bong-gu is surrounded by reporters. Subin comments that their Bong-gu is on the news and everything, and that he's really moving up in the world. Kang Jun asks her if that person is the Mr. Bong-gu who visited them recently. Subin confirms, saying that you can tell from how ignorant he is. Subin asks if Mr. Bong-gu is a hunter. Kang Jun confirms it. Subin asks him why he didn't tell her. Kang Jun replies that she didn't ask. Subin apologizes, admitting that he's right. Kang Jun replies that it's nothing. At that moment, Seoul announces that she has finished her food. She enthusiastically asks to play with him again. Kang Jun looks at her in silent shock. Kang Jun gets up from the table, thinking that it has been a long time, but it seems he must issue an order. He calls his followers, Errol and Dalsu, and they reply in the affirmative, asking him to speak. He orders them to find someone and bring them to him. Errol asks for clarification. Kang Jun explains that to satisfy their own greed, they created and distributed the Dr. Genius's calculation playset. He orders them to find the devil who pushed all the parents of this nation into suffering and chaos and bring them before him. Dalsu and Errol reply in the affirmative. Subin thinks that he must really hate that calculation game. She tells Dalsu not to mind what Kang Jun says and adds that she'll see to it. Dalsu thinks worriedly that but his master's orders are absolute. Kang Jun continues to play the cash register game with Seoul. Seoul announces, welcoming the customer. Kang Jun replies in despair. Seoul asks him how she can help him. Kang Jun replies that he wants freedom. Later that night, Subin was washing the dishes, thinking that she was tired of waiting, and that tonight she was completely alone. Errol calls her name. Subin is surprised by the title. Subin is surprised to see Errol holding a tray and expresses her fear, asking her how long she has been here. Errol hesitantly asks Subin if it's demeaning to ask, but would she entrust her with simple chores like washing the dishes and cleaning? Subin replies that it's okay. She tells her that she must still be confused about everything, so she should rest for a while. Errol hesitates. Subin suggests that if she's really uncomfortable, what about just keeping her company while she washes the dishes? Errol agrees. Errol begins to talk while Subin washes the dishes, telling her that her master was also like her, not bound by formalities, and treated his subjects and people with ease. Subin asks if that's really true. Subin thinks to herself, what a pity, and that this lady is completely immersed in role-playing, and wonders how hard it must have been for her in that gate. Errol says that she always wondered how that was possible, but it seems it's just a trait of the imperial family. Errol continues to talk about her master, saying that he was a man worthy of being called a wise king by all accounts. Subin asks if she means Kang Jun. Errol confirms this, adding that her master's very existence was the order and law for the entire world. She adds that moreover, he was a much more absolute existence than any religion or god. Subin thinks about the term absolute existence. She remembers Kang Jun playing with Soul, where she gives him 8,001 and he wishes her a good day. Subin thinks and asks Errol if she means Kang Jun. She suppresses a chuckle. Subin says that maybe it's because she's the older sister who practically raised him herself, but she can't comprehend him being a divine being. Errol asks her if that's true. Subin asks if people offered prayers to Kang Jun and all that. Errol confirms this. Subin continues, wondering if there were perhaps a bunch of places like shrines with full statues of him, or busts of him erected everywhere. Errol replies that this is indeed a clever guess from Subin. Errol confirms that as Subin says, countless beings offer prayers and worship her master. She adds that the number of temples built across the continent to serve her master and honor his great achievements exceeds several hundred. Subin comments that this is crazy. Subin wonders if her inspiration was North Korea. Then she asks Errol if there weren't other religions in her kingdom. Errol replies that there were several religions, but all their lines have since become extinct. Subin asks if Kang Jun eliminated all other religions or something like that. Errol denies this, explaining that her master did not suppress other religions. Rather, everyone simply stopped worshipping other gods. Subin asks why. Errol explains that not a single god granted direct salvation. Rather, they only demand endless faith and worship. Subin comments that this is the case for almost all religions. Errol continues, saying that her master, however, personally stepped forward and offered salvation. She adds that he put an end to a war that seemed like it would never stop, and repeatedly protected the continent from foreign invasions. She continues that, moreover, he ruled as an emperor for hundreds of years, achieving great deeds. She concludes that she believes this is the reason why people served the master instead of a god. Errol asserts that he was truly great, and that everyone praised her master, and she believes that was around the time her master reached the peak of a ninth circle necromancer. Subin asks if everyone then hates Kang Jun. Errol asks for clarification on who she is referring to. Subin clarifies that she means the gods, from whom their followers and devotees were stolen. Errol agrees with her, saying that that is correct. She adds that she believes every one of them holds intense envy and jealousy towards her master. Subin says that she knew it. Errol corrects herself, saying that of course that's only assuming their gods actually exist in the first place. Subin's phone rings. She looks at the caller and wonders why the grocery store owner is calling at this hour. She answers the phone and listens, wondering if it's about tomorrow, confirms she understands, tells him to let her know if anything changes, and thanks him for always being so considerate. After ending the call, Subin turns to Dalsu and asks him if he's able to go to an interview tomorrow. She explains that it's the part-time job interview at the grocery store I mentioned, and adds that the owner said it's at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Dalsu is shocked and wonders if this is a part-time job. He thinks excitedly if this is finally the first step towards establishing his master's new kingdom. The next day at the grocery store, the owner, who is looking at a resume, asks if his name is Mr. Choi Dalsu. He thinks that he's been running this store for over 10 years and has conducted hundreds of interviews. But it's the first time he's seen an applicant like this. Dalsu is shown wearing a full formal tuxedo. The owner asks him his name. Dalsu replies enthusiastically. The owner asks him if he doesn't feel hot. Dalsu asserts that he doesn't feel hot at all and that he's perfectly fine. The owner tells him that he doesn't need to be so nervous. He thinks that it's just a part-time job interview, so why is he overreacting like this? Dalsu replies that he's not nervous at all. The owner apologizes for suddenly moving up the interview time. He explains that because of what happened yesterday, all the current part-time workers resigned. The owner continues that he heard a little about Dalsu's situation from Sobin. He mentions that she told him that he has been showing signs of amnesia since his return from the gate. Dalsu loudly confirms that this is correct. The owner tells him to really calm down now. He thinks that he's sweating like a waterfall and wonders why he's acting so anxious. Dalsu thinks to himself that this is his first mission in this earthly dimension, and that he must succeed no matter what. He remembers that his status here is just a slave. The owner explains that even if he starts, the morning shift is very slow, so it won't be difficult or anything. He adds that the tasks at most are just customer service, stocking, and cleaning. Dalsu suddenly bows deeply and vows loudly that if he is given this opportunity, until his bones turn to dust and his body crumbles, he will put his heart and soul into it. The owner backs away startled and thinks that he scared him. The owner tells Dalsu that he doesn't need to go that far. He adds that he just shouldn't be late or miss shifts. Dalsu jumps from his chair, shouting and asking for just one chance, asserting that this part-time job is the greatest wish of his life and the dream he must achieve. The owner stares at him, stunned, and thinks that a part-time job is the dream of his life. He hesitantly tells him that he's hired and can start tomorrow. Dalsu thanks him enthusiastically. Dalsu thinks to himself that he must figure out what to call this human of the ruling class, as his status here is just a humble slave. He remembers that this human of the ruling class is above him. Dalsu bows deeply again before the stunned owner and shouts, calling him sir. Kim Bong-gu wakes up in a hospital room, wondering what the hell is happening. After meeting the reporters and being taken to the hospital for checkups, his head was spinning. Bong-gu noticed that the room, despite being a hospital room, was much better than his own home, which made him wonder about its cost per day. At that moment, a man in a suit enters, placing a fruit basket, and answers his unspoken question, estimating the cost at about 3 million won. The man added that he might get a discount depending on the length of his stay, but as far as he knew, the discount wasn't significant. Bong-gu recognizes the visitor. It's Seo Do-cheol, the bureau chief. Do-cheol asks for permission to sit, noting that they meet again. Do-cheol apologizes for his sudden visit, to which Bong-gu replies that it's okay and asks why he came. Do-cheol explains that he has some questions regarding the disaster rank gate that occurred today and some information to convey to him, so he preferred to come in person. Do-cheol begins by thanking Bong-gu for his efforts to protect the nation and its people, to which Bong-gu humbly replies that he didn't provide any help at all. Do-cheol continues, explaining that, as Bong-gu knows, all the other survivors of the gate are unconscious, except for him. Therefore, for now, they have no choice but to rely on his testimony, which Bong-gu confirms. Do-cheol asks Bong-gu if he can summarize what happened inside the disaster rank gate. Bong-gu begins to explain, thinking to himself the necessity of telling the truth while twisting it to hide the identity of the big brother, Kang Jun. Bong-gu mentions that inside, there were ordinary monsters so strong that hunter Cho Ji-hoon had difficulty facing them, and that the boss monster, the Frost Giant, was the one who defeated Cho Ji-hoon. Do-cheol takes notes, muttering the name Frost Giant, and concludes that if the ordinary monsters were that bad, the boss must have been hopeless. He adds that this matches what they concluded from Cho Ji-hoon's condition, that resistance was impossible. Do-cheol asks if Cho Ji-hoon has woken up, then explains that they only concluded from the wounds and traces on his body that he seems to have been crushed by an irresistible, immense pressure and subdued in an instant. But he points out that this leaves one question they can't answer. Do-cheol asks who on earth subdued such a powerful boss monster, and how. Bong-gu replies that he's not sure, claiming that he lost consciousness around that time, and apologizes, to which Do-cheol replies that it's okay. Do-cheol tells Bong-gu that they are grateful for his safe return, and thanks him for his cooperation. He mentions that, as he knows, clearing a disaster rank gate with so little damage is a world-first event. For this reason, many other countries are showing great interest. He admits that it's painful not to know the details, to which Bong-gu agrees. Do-cheol changes the subject, saying that he didn't just come for his testimony, but also to bring him some good news. Bong-gu nervously wonders about this good news. Do-cheol reminds Bong-gu that a while ago, inside the gate near Guro Digital Complex Station, he succeeded in subduing an A-rank necromancer belonging to the Anti-Bureau Alliance. Bong-gu claims that it was just luck, but Do-cheol replies that he has now also helped clear a disaster rank gate, and that can't be described as luck anymore. Bong-gu thinks to himself that Big Brother did everything and he was just lucky, wondering if he's the one being referred to. Do-cheol announces that to reward his contributions, the Bureau has prepared some simple compensations. First, until his mother, who suffers from an unknown chronic illness, recovers, he can use the VIP room in the hospital designated for the awakened for free. Bong-gu is shocked and mutters in amazement. Do-cheol adds that of course Bong-gu and the other part-time hunters involved will receive medals and cash prizes that come with benefits. A memorial service for the hunters who died while clearing the gate will also be held, in conjunction with the award ceremony. Do-cheol continues that the most beneficial advantage for Bong-gu is that his immediate family will receive free education for life. Bong-gu stands stunned, thinking of Big Brother and thanking him from the bottom of his heart. Finally, Do-cheol announces that hunter Kim Bong-gu has been selected as a candidate for rank adjustment. Bong-gu is surprised. Do-cheol confirms that given his performance, Bong-gu is now eligible for a rank adjustment evaluation at the end of this year. Do-cheol expresses his hope that Bong-gu will get a promotion to a rank worthy of him, but Bong-gu hesitantly replies that he thinks C rank is still suitable for him. Do-cheol bows, expressing the Bureau's hope that Bong-gu will continue to work to protect the nation and its people even after his promotion. Bong-gu thinks to himself that this is bad. As Do-cheol leaves, he tells Bong-gu that he will see him at the memorial service, to which Bong-gu hesitantly agrees. Bong-gu remains alone in his room, lost in thought. Elsewhere, on a rooftop at night, two mysterious figures are talking. One tells the other that he has obtained the information he needs. The other asks him what he was told. The first explains that in a few days, a memorial and award ceremony for the disaster rank gate will be held. When his companion asks about its significance, he replies that this seems like the best day to carry out their plan, in front of everyone. The other understands the plan and clarifies that they will kidnap the target, Bong-gu, and expose the Bureau's incompetence to the world. The first confirms this. The second adds that they will then try to persuade the target to join the anti-Bureau alliance. The first concludes that if that fails, they will kill them. In a later scene, Kim Bong-gu arrives carrying bags at Kang Jun's apartment. Bong-gu is surprised to see Errol, saying that they meet again, and thinks that she's that lady from before. Errol, who is holding a food whisk, orders him to be silent. Bong-gu seems confused and asks what she's talking about. Dol-soo appears laughing. Bong-gu mutters, wondering why. Dol-soo tells him not to be discouraged, explaining that Lady Errol never deigns to speak with those weaker than her. Kim Bong-gu notices Dol-soo's vest and asks him where he got the store vest. Dol-soo laughs, saying that Bong-gu has a keen eye and that his guess is correct. Bong-gu asks if he picked it up from a clothing donation box. Dol-soo is shocked and coughs. Suddenly, Dol-soo clears his throat and bows, welcoming Bong-gu as a customer and asking if he's looking for anything in particular. Bong-gu wonders why he's acting so strange. Dol-soo proudly announces that as Bong-gu can see, as of today he is working as a part-time employee for the morning shift on weekdays at the nearby GU store. Bong-gu hesitantly congratulates him. Bong-gu thinks to himself, remembering that Dol-soo mentioned he had a job interview, but he wonders if he'll do the job properly. Bong-gu spots Kang Jun standing on the balcony and asks him why the hell he's locked up there. Kang Jun replies that there's a sad legend behind how he got trapped on this balcony, leaving Bong-gu confused. Inside, Sol was sitting on a small chair, watching. Sol tells her uncle, Bong-gu, that daddy is a thief, and so he went to jail. Bong-gu asks her if she's playing cops and robbers with her father. Sol enthusiastically confirms this, then adds that uncle is a thief too, so he's going to jail. Bong-gu is bewildered. From the balcony, which has now come to resemble a cell door, Kang Jun asks Bong-gu what he's doing and orders him to come in. He welcomes him, saying that he welcomes him and that it's his first time in jail, and reassures him that people live there too. Bong-gu now stands inside the balcony with Kang Jun and comments that Big Brother is really into the game, and asks him if he's been locked up here for a long time. Kang Jun asks what time it is. Bong-gu guesses it's around 4 p.m. Kang Jun concludes that then it's been about 3 hours since he was locked up after lunch. Bong-gu shouts in shock, wondering if it's been 3 hours. Kang Jun explains that Sol at least lets him out to use the bathroom, commenting that she's very flexible. Kang Jun asks Bong-gu why he's visiting today. Bong-gu replies that he came to give him a report, as he was in the hospital yesterday and has just returned. Kang Jun asks him why he was in the hospital and if he was injured, pointing out that he seemed fine. Bong-gu replies that it was complicated. Bong-gu continues, saying that in any case this case was also quietly closed. He thinks to himself that he might have caused a huge misunderstanding, but things will be fine. Kang Jun replies that it's good work. Bong-gu continues to say that he actually has a favor to ask of him. Kang Jun asks him what kind of favor. Bong-gu explains what happened with the bureau chief, and mentions that at the end of the year, he has to take a rank promotion evaluation. Kang Jun guesses that Bong-gu is worried he'll look pathetic. Bong-gu bows deeply, confirming this and begging for his help. Kang Jun asks him how he can help, and if he should cheer him on or what. Bong-gu explains that he doesn't mean that, but was wondering if Kang Jun would train him in the meantime, perhaps he could make some progress. Kang Jun asks Bong-gu to think logically for a second. Kang Jun asks Bong-gu if he thinks cramming, intensive last-minute training, will turn a 0 into 100. Bong-gu hesitates. Kang Jun corrects himself, saying that but perhaps he can raise his score by 10 points. Bong-gu asks in surprise about the 10 points. Kang Jun confirms it. He explains that the fool they met before, the necromancer, is probably worth about 10 points. Bonggu asks worriedly if he's talking about the necromancer from the Anti-Bureau Alliance that he defeated last time. Kang Jun replies that it's him. Kang Jun smiles and says that fool he met at the gate is worth 10 points at most, and asks him if that's enough. Bonggu shouts enthusiastically that that's more than enough. In fact, it's too much. Kang Jun replies that really, and tells him to come to his house tomorrow at exactly 8 a.m. to start. Bonggu bows repeatedly, thanking him warmly. Bonggu suddenly remembers something else and says that he heard there's a big memorial service and award ceremony before the promotion exam. He explains that it's an event to honor the hunters who died while clearing the gate, and to give medals to the part-time hunters who helped. Bonggu tells Kang Jun that all of this is thanks to him, and that if he gets any money as a reward, he'll give it all to him. Suddenly, Dolsu appears at the balcony door, waving his hands, which startles Bonggu. Dolsu enthusiastically congratulates Bonggu, saying that it seems he's finally on the path to success. He adds that Bonggu will receive a Medal of Merit in front of everyone, wondering what else this could be but success. Dolsu encourages Bonggu to take a lot of pictures with his sister and show them to his mother when she recovers. Bonggu, scratching his head, explains that he thinks he'll have to go alone because his sister's college entrance exam is also coming up, and adds that his mother would rather see his sister get into a good college than see pictures of the ceremony. Kang Jun asks him if he's going alone, to which Bonggu confirms. Kang Jun thinks about it, remembering that he was always alone too. His older sister was the breadwinner of the family, and she always seemed so busy and tired that he couldn't even ask her to come to his graduation ceremony. Kang Jun crosses his arms and tells Bonggu that he'll go with him. Bonggu is surprised, so Kang Jun explains that it's lonely to be alone on a special day. Kim Bonggu thanks Kang Jun warmly, saying that he didn't have to offer to accompany him. Kang Jun replies that if he's that grateful, he should show something tangible instead of just talking. Bonggu remembers something and says that's why on the day of the award ceremony. Then he shouts in surprise, as he presents a gift. Sol shouts enthusiastically the name Princess Sophie. Bonggu explains that she's Sol's favorite princess in the whole world, confirming that uncle, he, brought her for her. Sol shouts with joy and tells her uncle, Bonggu, that she wants to play with Princess Sophie. Bonggu bows and asks her if they'll play together, to which Sol jumps and replies in the affirmative. As Bonggu and Sol begin to play with the new toy, Kang Jun, who is still on the balcony, calls out to the princess, wondering about his fate. Sol mutters thoughtfully. Then she ignores him and heads towards her small pink chair, climbs onto it, and sits comfortably. Sol crosses her arms and sternly declares that thieves go to jail. Kang Jun protests, from off-screen, that he didn't steal anything in the first place. Kang Jun, from his prison on the balcony, surrounded by a dark aura, shouts at Bonggu, calling him a cowardly scoundrel for bribing the prison guard, Sol. Bonggu, who is still playing, asks what he means by bribe. Bonggu corrects him with a smile, saying that he should call it bail. Kang Jun shouts in protest. Bonggu waves goodbye to him, saying that he'll see him on the day of his release, whenever that may be, while Kang Jun screams his name. Suddenly Kang Jun stops and his expression changes, muttering a question. He asks seriously about this feeling. He thinks to himself that he feels a very faint mana, and he wonders where it's coming from. Elsewhere, in a park, a man sits on a bench and says that communications have been cut. His female companion asks him why, and the man explains that the spy bug he sent has been destroyed. He concludes that the target, Kim Bonggu, has noticed that he's being watched, and that Kim Bonggu, the devoted son, is definitely not an ordinary person. The man, who is revealed to be Kim Do-hoon, ranked 8th in the Anti-Bureau Alliance, continues that despite Bonggu being C rank, he eliminated the necromancer they worked so hard to train, without a single scratch. He believes that if they can recruit him, he will be a huge addition to their forces. His companion, Lee Heeji, ranked 12th and a torture specialist, says while eating ice cream that she hopes the target will resist and not give up until the end. She adds that it would be better if he was just a pathetic person who thinks he's a hero. That way they can have fun playing with him, and when they get bored, they simply kill him. Do-hoon comments that they underestimated the target. His ability to notice a spy bug operating on minimal mana means his mana sensitivity is no less than S rank or higher. Heeji laughs, saying that this will be fun. Do-hoon adds that his physical specs and combat abilities are probably at least at the level of an A-rank hunter. Do-hoon decides to return for now. He and Heeji leave through a teleportation gate. The next day, Kang Jun presents Bonggu with a set of training weights and orders him to wear them all the time from now on. Bonggu asks what they are, to which Kang Jun sarcastically asks if he can't tell just by looking and advises him to read a book or something. Kang Jun asks Bonggu if he hasn't seen Dragon Ball and points out how Son Goku would wear heavy training clothes, then take them off to move at insane speeds when things got serious. Bonggu confirms that he saw that, but he wonders if this kind of old-fashioned training method will work. Kang Jun mentions that it appears in other works too, like fighting with weights then taking them off to increase strength when on the verge of losing. Bong-gu worries that his joints might collapse first, adding that he's the magical type. Kang Jun ends the discussion, saying that's enough, and tells him not to wear them if he doesn't want to, grumbling that he spent tens of thousands of won on them and Bong-gu doesn't even appreciate it. Bong-gu quickly backtracks, saying it's not that he doesn't want to. Kang Jun boasts that many would die for the chance to be trained by him, and that the line would probably wrap around the earth several times. A moment later, Bong-gu stands wearing the weights on his wrists and ankles, trembling. He mutters that he's good, but thinks to himself what part of this is good. They're much heavier than he expected, and he estimates that each side is at least 10 kilograms. Kang Jun orders Bong-gu to go play with Sol now. Bong-gu asks in confusion. Kang Jun threatens him with a dark aura that if he makes him repeat himself, he's dead. Sol swallows in fear, and Bong-gu confirms his agreement. Bong-gu bends down to play with Sol, groaning from his back, and noticing that the weights get heavier when he bends down. He asks Sol if she wants to play with him, to which she enthusiastically replies that she'd love to. Bong-gu asks her what she wants to play. Sol enthusiastically points to the cash register toy, saying she wants to do this. Bong-gu sweats and realizes that it's the eternal calculation game that the master, Dalsu, mentioned. Bong-gu hesitantly agrees and sits down to play while trembling. Bong-gu finds it extremely difficult to lift a small toy piece while trembling and thinks that it's so heavy. He wonders if just sitting and lifting these things is this difficult, feeling that his arm is about to break, and asks himself if he's really this weak. Bong-gu, still wearing the weights, feels desperate. He thinks about the long time he spent in the game, 8,000 years, and wonders how with such a weak body he can support his family and get an elixir to cure his mother. Hours later, Bong-gu collapses on the floor, exhausted. Soli announces that she doesn't want to play the cash register game anymore. Bong-gu thinks that it's finally over and asks if he can rest now, but Sol replies that she wants to play a different game now, which shocks Bong-gu. The magical girl in pain game begins. Sol, holding a magic wand, chants her spell and orders the villain, Bong-gu, to fall, then orders him to get up and fight again. The game continues with Sol ordering the villain to fall repeatedly, while Bong-gu collapses and begs her. Then they move on to the plane of terror that even dragons tremble from game, where Bong-gu lifts Sol into the air while trembling under the weight of the weights. This is followed by the terrifying rocking horse that even the horses of hell tremble from game, where Bong-gu is forced to act as a horse for Sol. Finally, they play the demonic centrifuge game, where Bong-gu spins Sol around as she screams with excitement. After babysitting, the housework training begins. While Sol is sleeping on the floor, Bong-gu, still wearing the weights, receives orders from Kang Jun, off-screen, to wipe the grease stains off the gas stove, then do the laundry, separating whites from darks, and when everything is done, clean the house too. Bong-gu replies exhaustedly to each command. One day passes like this, where Bong-gu is seen folding laundry, playing with Sol, mopping floors, cleaning windows, and using the vacuum cleaner, all while weighed down by the weights. 1 week later, Bong-gu looks completely exhausted. He thinks that his body is getting more exhausted every day, and he tries to convince himself that Big Brother must have a reason, wondering if he's testing his patience and perseverance. Suddenly, Bong-gu feels that something is strange. He realizes that no matter how he thinks about it, this training seems strange. He remembers similar stories, like a trainee chef who is only allowed to prepare ingredients for years, or a cartoon assistant who only practices drawing lines for years. Bong-gu concludes that these stories are common, and enthusiastically concludes that as expected, Big Brother was testing his limits. Another week later, Kang Jun calls Bong-gu, pointing out that the end of the month has already arrived. Kang Jun asks Bong-gu about the date of the promotion exam. Bong-gu replies that he mentioned it was in early December, which means there are about 2 months left. Kang Jun mutters to himself that time has flown by and that he has messed around too much, and that he now really needs to start the real training. Then Kang Jun asks Bong-gu about the date of the memorial and award ceremony. Bong-gu checks and says that he mentioned October 1st, which means it's tomorrow. Kang Jun decides that they will attend the ceremony tomorrow. Then they will start the real training. Bong-gu asks enthusiastically if this means he has finally passed the test. Kang Jun is surprised. Bong-gu boasts that he is sharp and wouldn't have survived all this time if he wasn't, claiming that he knew all along. Bong-gu confidently asserts that Kang Jun was testing his patience and perseverance for the past 2 weeks. Kang Jun hesitantly replies that you could say that, but thinks to himself that he only did it for fun. Kang Jun pats Bong-gu on the shoulder, telling him that he has worked hard so far. He tells him to get ready to start tomorrow, thinking to himself that he'll let him believe what he wants. Meanwhile, in the apartment, Marbus sits in puppy form on his cushion, thinking angrily about the immortal, the demonic scoundrel. At the same time, In Anseong-si, Gyeonggi-do, Kim Do-hoon sits with members of the Anti-Bureau Alliance. Lee Hee-ji approaches him and says that the grand plan is almost here, and asks him enthusiastically if he's excited too. Do-hoon replies that the target is strong. Hee-ji smiles and says she knows, and that's why she's excited. Do-hoon looks at their assembled forces and announces their plan. They will do it tomorrow. They will wait for the award ceremony to begin, and the moment the target Kim Bong-gu, the devoted son, steps onto the stage, they will cause chaos, kidnap him, and disappear. On the day of the ceremony, Kang Jun is wearing a suit with a coat and comments that this is very uncomfortable. Subin, off-screen, reassures him that he looks great. Subin adjusts his clothes, and Kang Jun asks her if she's sure she's not coming. Kang Jun confirms that he will go out alone with the young lady, Errol, because Lord Curbsley, Dalsu, has to work at the store. Subin asks him to be sure to congratulate Mr. Bong-gu on her behalf, to which Kang Jun agrees. Errol appears wearing a formal black suit. Kang Jun tells her they should go, and she replies in the affirmative. As Kang Jun is preparing to leave, his daughter Sol calls him enthusiastically. Sol appears wearing a beautiful yellow dress and bows, wishing him a safe trip. Kang Jun is overwhelmed with a feeling of how cute she is. Subin pats Sol on the head and praises her for being a good girl, explaining that she learned something about greetings and manners from a children's show this morning. Subin reminds Kang Jun that he used to love those shows when he was young, and that he even wrote letters and sent them to them, wondering if he remembers. Kang Jun replies hesitantly, unsure if he did that. Kang Jun pats Sol on the head and tells her that Daddy is leaving now. Kang Jun reflects to himself how warm it feels to have someone wish him a safe trip. Kang Jun and Errol arrive at the crowded ceremony venue. Kang Jun hears a child ask his mother if they don't have to hide anymore. His mother reassures him, saying of course not, as all the brave hunters have defeated the scary monsters. The child shouts enthusiastically that he wants to become a hunter too so he can fight monsters. Kang Jun watches the scene silently. Kang Jun thinks that this is a peaceful scene, and that at first he thought people were just indifferent to the danger. But he realizes that they are actually pretending to believe that the hunters will keep them safe, and just hoping that the bad luck they see in the news won't happen to them, and are acting out a peace that has already been stolen. Kang Jun mutters to himself, "What a damn corrupt world." Bong-gu, who is also wearing a suit, asks him in surprise what he said. Kang Jun replies that it's nothing, then asks him, looking at the number of attendees, if this is a very big event. Bong-gu confirms this, explaining that the suppression of this disaster-class gate was a historic achievement for humanity, as it was the first time a gate of this type was suppressed with minimal damage, and it is said that famous hunters will also be attending. Because of that, even other countries are paying attention, pointing to the reporters and cameras. Kang Jun looks at the hunters' side of the crowd, and thinks that most of them are weak, and the few who are decent are at best. Kang Jun notices that Bong-gu looks pale and asks him if he's okay. Bong-gu explains that he was chosen to represent all the returning hunters on stage today alone because the others are still unconscious or too injured to attend. An organizer approaches them and asks the attendees to go to their designated seats as the memorial and award ceremony is about to begin. Bong-gu agrees. Bong-gu tells Kang Jun that he's going now and asks him to take his seat as well. Kang Jun wishes him good luck. The ceremony begins with an opening speech, recalling the time since the first gates appeared and how the Bureau will continue to protect the nation's safety. Kang Jun yawns with boredom, thinking that no one is really paying attention anyway, and wishing they would just hand out the awards and get it over with quickly. After that, the speaker invites the devoted son hunter Kim Bong-gu to represent all the returning hunters and give a eulogy for the hunters who fell during the suppression process, amidst the applause of the audience. Kang Jun smiles as he sees Bong-gu finally step onto the stage. Bong-gu nervously walks towards the podium. Kang Jun notices that he looks like a robot up there. Suddenly Kang Jun's expression changes. He feels killing intent. Irel notices it too and calls out to her master. Irel says that it seems someone is planning something evil. Kang Jun agrees with her. Kang Jun sits back in his chair, thinking and wondering who is trying to start something here. Kang Jun once again remembers the words of the child who wondered if they had to hide, and thinks that hearing that again now bothers him. He concludes that these planners must be the type who take what they want by force, and that their goal is clear enough. Kang Jun thinks that this has nothing to do with him, but he remembers Sol's face as she wished him a safe trip. Kang Jun decides that he doesn't like this. Errol calls him master. He adds that he hates pretending to be some kind of hero. He thinks that if anything happens, the hunters will intervene. However, Kang Jun remembers the family dinner and wishes that Sol would at least be smiling at dinner tonight. Kang Jun suddenly stands up amidst the audience, thinking that he can't really just sit and watch. People around him wonder what he's doing. One complains that he's blocking the view. Another asks why he suddenly stood up, and someone tells him to sit down already. Kang Jun turns to Errol and addresses her as Minister of the Interior, asking her to listen carefully. She replies in the affirmative. Kang Jun orders her that from this moment on, they will intercept those behind the plot. He adds that she should kill them on sight except for the leader, who should be kept alive for questioning. Errol confirms the order again. Kang Jun orders her to engage with full force. Chaos erupts amidst screams of pain. On the rooftop of the building, Kim Do-hoon stands over bloody corpses and speaks into a radio, announcing that the rooftop has been secured. Do-hoon sits on the body of an enemy and receives reports over the radio. The bomb squad has planted explosives at all 8 targeted points, and the engine room team has reported full control. He asks for a report from the infiltration unit, and the reply comes that they are also ready. Do-hoon announces that the operation begins the moment the target, the devoted son Kim Bong-gu, steps onto the stage. He explains that the 8 bombs inside the building will detonate at the same time. After that, the elite unit will storm the conference hall, carrying out a mass slaughter and kidnapping the target. Meanwhile, he will use the sniper hosts infected with magic parasites to repel reinforcements. Do-hoon believes that after hundreds of simulations, there is no chance for this plan to fail. Do-hoon sees the target step onto the stage and says that it starts now. Suddenly, he hears a voice over the radio screaming, wondering who's there and demanding to be identified. Do-hoon asks worriedly what's happening, wondering if the infiltration team has been discovered. He hears the voice of someone else begging for mercy. Do-hoon realizes that this is the voice of the engine room team and orders them to report. He hears loud screams of terror over the radio and the voice of someone shouting for help and another warning everyone to run. Do-hoon tries to contact the engine room team again, shouting for a report on their status, but he only hears static. A report comes in that the explosives team has been almost wiped out and all the bombs have been defused. Do-hoon is shocked. He holds his head in anger, unable to believe that every elite team carefully selected for this mission has been eliminated or has had its communication cut in less than a minute. He wonders what the hell is happening. Do-hoon analyzes the situation. The first to be hit was a decoy agent disguised as an event staff member near the hall. Each floor of the building is about 20,000 pyong. Getting from the hall to the engine room must take at least several minutes, and even more if they were moving cautiously. Do-hoon recalls the voices he heard over the radio, of pleas and screams. He wonders if the Bureau has discovered them, but he dismisses that, saying it's not their style. He thinks that discovering the infiltration team first means that multiple groups were moving simultaneously, but he asserts that this is not the Bureau's style. The Bureau always prioritizes capture, and even if they had discovered the plan, they wouldn't have responded so violently. So he asks himself who the perpetrator is. Lee Hee-ji suddenly appears beside him, saying that it seems they have an uninvited guest too. Do-hoon demands a detailed report from her. Hee-ji cheerfully asks if she can kill this lady. Do-hoon asks her in surprise which lady she's talking about, and if there's a woman on the assault team. Hee-ji confirms this, describing her as very beautiful and that she wants to play with her for a long time. Do-hoon shouts, warning her to wait, realizing that her opponent is insanely strong. Hee-ji ignores him and says she'll report back after she's taken care of her, then cuts off the communication. Do-hoon tries to stop her, asking how many enemies are there. Hee-ji replies before cutting off the communication that there's only one, for now. Do-hoon realizes that they've also lost contact with the assault team in the aquarium on the lower floor. He thinks in shock how one person could eliminate the assault team and corner Lee Hee-ji. He wonders who the hell this person is. He wonders if he should go to support them and tries to contact the radio again, asking if anyone can hear him. A voice comes over the radio confirming that he can hear him. Do-hoon asks angrily about his identity. The sarcastic voice over the radio, clearly Kang Jun, asks if he means to be killed by him. Do-hoon's terror widens as he falls into darkness. Kang Jun's voice tells him to go ahead and try. Elsewhere inside the building, Lee Hee-ji moves away from Errol amidst dark corpses scattered on the floor. Hee-ji wonders in surprise how this lady can be so insanely strong. The other members of the assault team prepare to attack, and one suggests that they take care of her first and then report later, shouting to take down at least one for now. Hee-ji asks Errol exactly who she is. Errol replies that she is Errol, Minister of the Imperial Household, and expresses her deep gratitude to Hee-ji for her recklessness. Errol explains that thanks to her, she can finally be of use to her master again after a very long time. Hee-ji thinks that she's never heard this name before and wonders if she's a foreign hunter with this name. Errol says that in gratitude she will remember her name. Errol asks her for her name, adding that she will flip out when she hears it. Hee-ji introduces herself as Lee Hee-ji, interrogation technician, and asks if the name is familiar. She adds that she's very skilled at torture herself. Errol criticizes Hee-ji's bad behavior, saying that it seems she's late for etiquette training. She announces that she will personally teach her. Heeji is shocked. Errol tells Heeji to forget about a beautiful death, because as Heeji said, Errol is a rude and bad girl. Heeji rushes towards Errol, thinking that she knew it, and that whips are weak at close range and that this is her territory. Errol unleashes Empire's etiquette first form. Heeji is surprised. Errol hits Heeji and announces that the form is poise. Heeji groans in pain. Errol orders her not to raise her voice. Heeji screams that she's in pain. Errol gets ready and unleashes Empire's etiquette second form. She announces that the form is preparation for an audience. Heeji finds herself in a different place, wondering where they are. Heeji wonders in surprise. Errol tells her that if she wishes to face His Majesty, she must first make herself presentable and remove every weapon she carries. Hidden weapons fall from Heeji's clothes. Errol attacks with lightning speed and pins Heeji to the ground. Heeji thinks how fast she is. Errol orders her to remain kneeling and touch her forehead to the ground. Heeji resists. Heeji breaks down crying, saying okay, she was wrong, and begs for forgiveness and mercy. Errol holds Heeji's hair, commenting that it seems the etiquette is finally sinking in, and that she's kind of cute when she behaves. Heeji continues to beg. Errol reminds her that she just told her to maintain her poise. Heeji screams that it's too scary. Errol says that she's now somewhat ready to face His Majesty. Errol gets ready and unleashes Empire's etiquette third form. Heeji continues to beg. Errol announces that the form is the Imperial Audience. She instructs Heeji that when she stands before His Imperial Majesty, she must be especially careful not to raise her eyes above his knees. Errol addresses Heeji as the rude child and tells her to be grateful that she is the one accompanying her master today. Errol ties her hair, wondering what would have happened if her master had gone with the Grand Duke Crepsley, Dal Su, instead of her. She concludes that Heeji would not have closed her eyes so peacefully. Heeji is left unconscious or dead on the floor. Meanwhile, in the ceremony hall, Kang Jun is shown adjusting his tie with boredom and says to someone, perhaps Do Hoon over the dropped radio, to kill him. On the rooftop, Do Hoon looks angry and concludes that the other person is not the type to respond to warnings. He warns him that from now on, regret won't help him. His forces appear behind him. Kang Jun notices that Do Hoon's men are acting strangely and realizes that there are bugs controlling them. Kang Jun asks Do Hoon if he was the one who sent the bugs to his home, and he wonders why he did that. Do Hoon concludes then that Kang Jun is the one who killed the mana parasite. Kang Jun tells Do Hoon that he will die several times until he talks. Do Hoon replies that Kang Jun still doesn't understand the situation and orders him to die as he is. Do Hoon's men open fire heavily, but Kang Jun suddenly disappears, leaving a shocked Do Hoon wondering where he went. Kang Jun suddenly appears in front of the terrified Do Hoon and asks him mockingly what he's waiting for. Didn't he say he would kill him? Kang Jun tells him to consider his men's bodies a gift and to make use of them, adding that he doesn't like to get his hands dirty. Do Hoon feels intense pain from the overwhelming mana and his nose bleeds, realizing that the parasites he had spread have disappeared in an instant. Do Hoon is terrified by the amount of immense mana and finds the surrounding scene transforming into a hellish red landscape. Do Hoon wonders in disbelief what is happening before countless glowing red eyes appear in the darkness. Do Hoon discovers that these eyes belong to skeletons and realizes that they are not the usual kind, but on a completely different level he has never heard of before. He concludes that whoever can command such skeletons must be a high-class necromancer. Do Hoon becomes even more confused, wondering how a necromancer can hit so hard and move so fast. Do Hoon feels desperate from the endless and suffocating mana and admits that it's over, as the power gap is so huge that resistance is futile. Do Hoon hears Kang Jun's voice asking him if he's scared. Kang Jun appears before the kneeling and exhausted Do Hoon and asks him if this feeling makes death seem easier. Kang Jun tells him that it's very unfortunate because he won't let him die peacefully. The confused Do Hoon asks him what he means. Kang Jun explains that he will continue to bring him back to life over and over again until he gets every answer he wants. Kang Jun tells Do Hoon that seeing is believing and invites him to taste it. Do Hoon screams in pain as Kang Jun kills him, telling him to go now, and he'll see him in a bit. Do Hoon suddenly wakes up, panting, not believing what happened, as he was sure he had died. Kang Jun orders him to open his eyes, and asks him with a sarcastic smile how his first death was. Kang Jun comments that it wasn't fun, and that this is exactly what the bodies that Do Hoon gifted him felt. Kang Jun asks Do Hoon if he's now ready to confess everything and get some rest. Do Hoon mutters a refusal. So Kang Jun interrupts him, concluding that once wasn't enough. In that case, Kang Jun suggests that he will continue to kill him and bring him back to life until Do-hoon decides to talk. Kang Jun analyzes the information he extracted from Kim Do-hoon on the blood-stained rooftop, thinking that the so-called anti-Bureau alliance is after Bong-gu. They seemed like a smart group based on what Do-hoon said. He understood their plan. They wanted to recruit the new hero Bong-gu to their side, which would have spread fear and anxiety among the people. If Bong-gu refused, they would have slaughtered him along with everyone at the ceremony. As a result, people would start questioning the Bureau's competence everywhere, and protests demanding the truth and the Bureau's downfall would spread. Kang Jun thinks with resentment that in the world where his princess, Sol, lives, he should be busy gardening, not dealing with this trash, but he realizes he can't let them run free. Usually, taking out the leader is enough, but the problem is this guy, Do-hoon, ended up like this. He sarcastically welcomes Do-hoon back to life for the 15th time, announcing it will be the last. He asks him directly about his leader and their headquarters, but he notices Do-hoon seems unable to speak, realizing he is under a prohibition spell preventing him from revealing secrets. He orders him to try speaking anyway. He warns him that if he dies from speaking a forbidden word, he won't bother reviving him again, as he doesn't enjoy repeating futile work. With tears in his eyes, Do-hoon manages to thank him for granting him a final death. Do-hoon tries to speak, whispering that the person leading them is actually, but he suddenly chokes and dies. A massive dark energy erupts, ending his life permanently as the spell activates. Kang Jun sighs in annoyance, realizing it ends here. He decides he'll just have to kill anyone who dares to show up from now on. At that moment, Errol appears behind him and addresses him as Master. Errol informs him that all other targets have been taken care of. He thanks her for her good work and tells her it's time to go back. Errol asks him about the mess and blood spread across the rooftop and whether they will clean it. He replies nonchalantly that he doesn't know, and that they, the Bureau, can manage the cleanup. He adds that they should at least go congratulate Bong-gu and take a picture with him, and Errol agrees. Back in the ceremony hall, an official was presenting Bong-gu with the medal, telling him he'd had a tough day. Bong-gu replies with a nervous thanks. Meanwhile, among the attendees was Kang Sung-hyun, nicknamed the Black Wolf, an S-rank hunter and the leader of the Solitad Guild, rank 5. Sung-hyun thinks that this new hero they're praising so much doesn't look that strong, and decides there's no need to try and recruit him for his guild yet. Beside him, his vice leader Gu Du-yul, nicknamed Steelman, S-rank hunter, rank 6, agreed, commenting to himself that Bong-gu looks weak and lacks any trace of masculinity. Suddenly, both Sung-hyun and Du-yul look at their phones at the same moment with surprised expressions. Sung-hyun whispers that they have an uninvited guest, and Du-yul agrees. Moments later, the two S-rank hunters arrive on the rooftop. Du-yul is shocked by what he sees. They witness the gruesome scene full of blood and Do-hoon's corpse, and Du-yul wonders what happened there. Du-yul notices the corpse, pointing out that its clothes and style look like those of one of them. Sung-hyun confirms it after seeing a tattoo under the neck, concluding it must be one of the executives. Du-yul is stunned that an executive from the Anti-Bureau Alliance was killed so brutally, wondering who the perpetrator was. Sung-hyun receives a phone call informing him that the bodies of Alliance assassins were found throughout the building. The caller adds that most of the bodies are in the aquarium on the lower floor, and one is believed to be the executive torture technician, Lee Hee-ji. Sung-hyun thinks in shock about how dozens of assassins, and even a top S-rank level executive, were eliminated so quietly. He wonders in confusion what the hell is going on. Du-yul suggests reporting to the bureau chief immediately, but Sung-hyun tells him it's already too late. Meanwhile, Kang Jun and Errol return to the hall. Kang Jun notices the bureau chief is busy now on the stage, and Errol agrees. Bong-gu appears on the stage with the officials. He decides they will wait until the ceremony is over, and Errol agrees. He looks at Bong-gu on the stage, thinking that he's a fool who has gotten into deep trouble. The Anti-Bureau Alliance is targeting him now, and he can't keep covering for him. He wonders for a moment if the innocent Bong-gu was dragged into this situation because of him, but he shakes his head, dismissing the idea. He decides he will make Bong-gu strong anyway, and after that, his fate is his own. He concludes that he will push him harder in training starting tomorrow. He adds that this will certainly be hell for Do-hoon, but he figures it's better than actual death. Meanwhile, Marbus, in the form of a Doberman, was laughing hysterically. He sits in the apartment, watching a stray cat named Nabi trying to steal a fish from an angry vendor. Marbus thinks that the cat is fighting with its teeth and claws just to live, unlike his own situation. He is now peacefully awaiting the special Yangnyeom galbi, marinated ribs meal that the immortal sister, Subin, promised him after she returns from shopping. She also takes him for a walk every day. He continues to think that if he gets a little dirty, she bathes him very gently. Marbus concludes that the life of a pet is not much different from the life of an emperor. It's even much better than his previous life, which was full of endless power struggles with his demon kin. Marbus acknowledges that this peaceful life suits him perfectly, but he admits there is one small problem. This problem is the child immortal, Sol, who persistently insists on kissing him. Marbus was terrified of this, fearing that the immortal, Kang Jun, would kill him if it happened. Then he suddenly notices that Sul isn't asking for kisses today, and wonders if she has already gotten tired of him. He feels disappointed for a moment, but quickly corrects himself that he feels relieved, and decides to overlook it because she is cute. At that moment, Kim Bong-gu arrives and tells him that dinner tonight is on him. He is surprised by the offer and clarifies that his sister is cooking yangnyeom galbi, so Bong-gu must buy him a hanwoo, premium Korean beef, set later. When Kang Jun returns home, he finds Marbus waiting for him at the door, wagging his tail enthusiastically. He asks him why he's there, and Marbus replies that he is, of course, waiting for his master's return. He criticizes him for asking why he acts like a real dog day after day. Marbus replies resentfully that Kang Jun was the one who ordered him to act like a dog. He asks where his sister and Sul are, and Marbus tells him they went shopping. Marbus follows his master, informing him that a terrible tragedy almost happened today. He asks him curiously what tragedy he is talking about. Marbus recounts that he saved the child immortal, Sol, who almost fell off the sofa, thanks to his quick thinking, stressing that she would have been seriously injured without him. He replies coolly while drinking, telling him that's good work. Marbus is shocked by the lukewarm reaction, wondering if that's all. He asks him sarcastically if he wants praise. Marbus hesitantly denies it, so he decides he will give him a new name as a reward. He thinks that he intended to give this name to Kremsley, Dalsu, but he feels it suits Marbus better. Marbus gets extremely excited, thinking that getting a new name means he has earned his master's trust, while Errol just looks at him in amazement. As he waits eagerly for the name, he announces that from now on, his name will be Gai Tong, dog poop. Bong-gu stands stunned, wondering how a demon can be named Gai Tong. But Marbus completely misunderstands the name, and believes with great joy that he has been recognized as the Emperor's loyal confidant. Bong-gu becomes even more amazed when he sees that Marbus is happy with the name. Marbus assures him that it is an honor for him. Bong-gu thinks about how this terrifying demon he first met has turned into a mere pet. Errol watches the scene jealously, whispering the name Gai Tong with envy, wishing that name was hers. Bong-gu is bewildered by her behavior, wondering what's so special about that name and why Errol seems eccentric too. He changes the subject, telling him he will start cleaning the house, but he stops him, ordering him to go back to his own house and rest, and to show up tomorrow at 8 a.m. sharp, announcing that his training will begin then. Bong-gu shouts enthusiastically, asserting that he will dedicate himself completely to Kang Jun's teachings. He calmly corrects him that he won't be training him himself, but that Lady Errol will be handling his special training. Both Bong-gu and Errol are shocked. Bong-gu shouts, asking for clarification, so he reassures him not to worry. If he dies during training, he will take responsibility for bringing him back to life as he did before. Bong-gu's terror increases as he wonders why he would potentially die. He explains that death sometimes happens, and adds that he thinks Bong-gu would look great as a Dullahan, headless horseman, when revived. Bong-gu screams in panic, wondering why he would mention something ominous like that headless thing. Errol intervenes coolly, telling him the reason is that his face is ugly. She adds that her master only revives ugly ones in the form of a Dullahan, so he should shut up and obey. Bong-gu stands speechless and utterly shocked. A future scene shows Bong-gu collapsing during training, realizing to himself that he didn't know back then that he might really die and become a Dullahan. An hour later, Sol returns, running playfully into the house. Subin tells Kang Jun that Sol waited a long time for him. He holds his daughter tenderly, and Marbus, Gai Tong, watches them, commenting on how the immortal completely melts in front of the child immortal. He continues to dote on his child Sol, wondering to himself if this wonderful creature is really his daughter, then asks her tenderly what she played today. Sol replies enthusiastically that she played the smart calculator game, and demands that he play with her too, which leaves him frozen in place, silent. The next morning, 60 days before the Hunter reclassification exam, Kim Bong-gu arrives at the apartment and greets Elder Dalsu, Kremsley, asking him if he slept well. Kremsley signals him to be quiet, asking him to lower his voice because Her Highness, Sol, hasn't woken up yet, so Bong-gu quietly apologizes. Kremsley mentions that he heard Bong-gu would be starting short-term special training with Lady Errol today. Bong-gu confirms it hesitantly. Kremsley reassures him that Errol's training is very effective and will greatly benefit his mental strength, thinking to himself that this is better for Bong-gu than training directly under Kang Jun, while Bong-gu wonders about the majestic image of Errol that appeared in his mind. Bong-gu comments that he doesn't know, as all he saw was that she seemed like a nice girl he wanted to protect. Kremsley corrects him seriously, explaining that strength is everything in the Anox Empire where survival of the fittest rules, and Lady Errol was so exceptional that she became one of the 5 great advisors of the Empire, which makes Bong-gu start to realize Kremsley adds that most humans wouldn't last a few moves against her before being defeated, but Bonggu expresses his disappointment, admitting he would have preferred to train under Kang Jun himself. Kremsley smiles and tells him that His Majesty made a wise and balanced decision. When Bonggu asks why, Kremsley explains that no soldier who trained under His Majesty was ever injured, which is why it's better for Errol to handle his training. Bonggu infers from this that Kang Jun's training was lenient and that he was gentle in teaching them. Kremsley vehemently denies this, revealing the horrifying truth that every single one of them had died during training. There were no injuries, only fatalities. Bonggu is utterly shocked. At that moment, Errol appears wearing sportswear, apologizes to the Archduke, Kremsley, for the interruption, and tells him it's time for training and she must take Bonggu now, to which Kremsley agrees. She coolly orders him to move, and he follows her in terror. As they are leaving, Kremsley suddenly remembers something important. He forgot to tell Bonggu that the mortality rate among Lady Errol's trainees is 50%. He simply shakes his head, thinking it doesn't matter. Even if Bonggu dies, His Majesty can revive him as an undead, so it's not a big deal. Later, in a park at the foot of Gwanaksan Mountain, closed to visitors due to a gate appearance, Bonggu was panting heavily from exhaustion. Errol informs him that today's training will last until sunset and will be direct hand-to-hand combat training. Bonggu tries to protest, explaining that he is an awakened magic type, but Errol cuts him off with a sharp warning that if he speaks again without permission, he will become a corpse in an instant. Bonggu immediately apologizes. Errol explains that mana comprehension and control training will take place at night. Bonggu realizes in shock that he is supposed to fight non-stop until sunset, and then start magic training after that, feeling she is overestimating his abilities. Errol replies coolly that today is much longer than he thinks. She adds that including sleeping hours, the day will be longer, and that by nightfall, he will understand what she means, making Bonggu even more terrified. Errol takes a combat stance and announces the start of the combat training. Bonggu hesitantly asks her what kind of training this is. Errol orders him directly to attack her with the intent to kill. Bonggu is surprised by this sudden request. Errol unleashes a terrifying aura, threatening that she will personally execute him under military law if he doesn't take it seriously. Bonggu feels the immense pressure. Bonggu snaps to attention, asserting he will do his best, so Errol tells him to consider her an enemy on the battlefield, wondering why he is apologizing for attacking an enemy, making Bonggu gather his courage. Bonggu rushes towards her, shouting as he throws consecutive punches. Errol dodges them with perfect agility. Before Bonggu can register what happened, she delivers a precise and powerful punch to his face, knocking him to the ground. The scene transitions to a symbolic shot in a pasture, showing a cow grazing while a newborn calf tries to stand, and a voice encourages it, asking it to get up. The symbolic scene of the calf continues, as it finally succeeds in standing on its feet, trembling, and a voice is heard congratulating it on its success. In parallel, Bonggu is shown trembling and standing in the same way, before they both, the calf and Bonggu, collapse to the ground at the same moment. Errol watches the scene, wondering to herself if Bonggu is even considered human. Bonggu remembers that this was the first time he had fainted. Meanwhile, in Kang Jun's apartment, the latter is still stuck with his daughter Sol after being exhausted by the calculator game, thinking desperately that it feels like 8,000 years have passed, begging internally for this torment to stop. Back at the training ground, Bonggu was panting on the ground, thinking that this is the 26th time he has fallen. Bonggu lies completely exhausted, realizing this isn't training, but torture, and wishes he could just lose consciousness to rest. But Errol coolly orders him to get up. She uses a skill called Water of Life and Death, a physical revival skill, pouring the water on him and forcing him to stand up immediately. Bonggu groans in pain, and Errol observes that his jawbone seems crushed and tells him she will fix it. As she places her glowing hand on his face to heal him, Bonggu begins to delirium, muttering words about the past and that he must go back. He continues to rave that he wants to go back to teach his past self a harsh lesson, and begs for the absent Kang Jun to help him, before suddenly shouting that this is enough and he's fine. Errol ignores his delirium and orders him to get up again. Bonggu staggers as he stands, thinking that this is the 27th round of torture. Errol attacks him again, but this time he decides he must block it. Bonggu succeeds in blocking her punch, letting out a scream of pain from the force of the blow. Bonggu is shocked, wondering how her small, oval fists can possess such explosive power. Through his perception filter, he sees her punch as a giant iron mace strike. Bonggu pants as he confirms to himself that it felt like he blocked a blow from a giant iron mace. Errol makes a sound of displeasure and declares that the hand-to-hand combat training is sufficient for today. Bonggu collapses to the ground, happy to be still alive, but she immediately orders him to get up, saying they need to refuel, eat. Bonggu feels hopeless, wondering how he will endure this hellish training for 2 whole months, and realizes they haven't even started the magic training yet. Later, after Bonggu has rested on the sofa, Errol orders him to get some sleep. Bonggu is surprised, wondering if she's skipping magic training today. He closes his eyes, thinking that maybe she doesn't want to overdo it on the first day, and feels grateful for her flexibility before falling asleep. Errol waits until she is sure he is asleep, then places her hand over his head to activate her magic. Bonggu suddenly finds himself in a different place and wonders where he is. He smiles, thinking he is finally free from training, but he is shocked when he realizes he is in his old school and sees Lady Errol before him in her full demonic form. Errol announces that they will start magic training now. Bonggu slaps his face in disbelief and is surprised that the slap doesn't hurt. He immediately remembers Errol's earlier warning that today is very long and that including sleeping hours, it will become longer. He realizes the horrifying truth and wonders in shock if he is in a dream. Errol confirms that it is correct, explaining that this is a world shaped by his own subconscious. When he asks her in astonishment if this is possible, she proudly declares that she is the Queen of Succubi, ruler of the dream world. She orders him to stop babbling, announcing the start of the nighttime magic training, which will be fully practical like the daytime training. Bonggu screams in panic, asking if this means he will be training even in his dreams. Errol ignores him and issues her instructions. He must use every part of his body capable of striking, mix magic with his attacks, and fight unpredictably. Bonggu thinks in horror that Errol really planned this, describing it as a completely ruthless schedule that doesn't spare him even in his sleep. Errol sarcastically reassures him not to worry. Since this is all within his subconscious, he will be endlessly resurrected even if he dies. Bonggu screams internally that this is even more evil. Errol continues her nightly training in Bonggu's subconscious world, which takes the form of his old school. She orders him to attack her with his full strength immediately. She fires a spear of powerful blue magic. Bonggu is hit directly, wondering in pain how he is supposed to dodge an attack like that and counter. Bonggu drops to his knees, wondering why he still feels intense pain even though this is just a dream. Errol explains coolly that without pain, he cannot truly immerse himself in the training. Bonggu collapses to the ground, complaining that she should have mentioned that earlier. He feels completely hopeless, wondering if he will really be able to endure this training to the end. She orders him with a single word, again. She launches another attack at him that sends him flying through the air, screaming in pain. He falls to the ground in agony, thinking that he would prefer death to this. But she stands over him and repeats her cold command, again. Thus ends the first brutal and horrifying day of training for Bonggu. Meanwhile, in Kang Jun's apartment, his sister Subin gives him a new cell phone, explaining that she thinks he should have one of his own. He thanks her enthusiastically, admitting he really wanted one. Subin tells him she already saved her number on it, and he notices the contact name is Big Sister. Sometime later, 39 days before the exam, he asks her if Bonggu has gotten stronger. Errol replies that he has gained some toughness now. He seems surprised, noting that this is unusual praise from her. Errol explains that on the 21st day of training, yesterday, Bonggu, perhaps unconsciously, managed to block one of her attacks. He asks her if it was a serious attack, and Errol confirms it, making him comment with admiration that Bonggu has really developed. At that moment, Bonggu enters, looking miserably exhausted, with a pale face, unshaven beard, and disheveled hair, and greets Kang Jun. He looks at him in shock, and Bonggu asks Errol if they are leaving soon, while he thinks to himself that it's only been 3 weeks, wondering what happened to Bonggu's face. He tells him that he should at least shave his beard and cut his hair before they go, while Bonggu wonders in confusion if he looks that bad. Later in the car, he asks him about his sudden request to book a gate. He replies that it's for his training, of course, but thinks to himself that he will train and earn money too, and that the main goal, honestly, is money. He remembers a previous conversation with his sister Subin, where he asked her if things were difficult for her because the house had become small and crowded, but she smiled and told him she was fine, and that she likes the noise because it makes the house feel alive. He thinks that she says that, but he knows it's not true. She quit her job because of him, and he feels he must at least buy her a house. Bonggu remembers terrifying scenes from his training with Errol where he was begging her to leave him alone, and the idea of entering another gate seems to terrify him. They arrive at the Bukansan gate, and he thinks that he will enter as a porter again to earn some money and get out. In the car, he asks Bonggu if he has reactivated his phone service. He confirms that it somehow happened, so he decides to give him his number. Bonggu asks with a smile how he should save his name, and he replies with a blank expression, Dullahan, Headless Horseman. Bonggu's smile freezes, so he stares at him coldly and asks him, imitating Errol, why he doesn't lower his eyes. He saves the number, thinking he has 2 contacts now. Bonggu notices that Kang Jun is using Kakao Talk and decides to check his profile. Bonggu is shocked when he sees Kang Jun's serious profile picture and the exaggeratedly long status message. Name, Lee Kang Jun, Seoul's dad, was the emperor of the Anox continent. Raising a child now is hard, not an easy job. Anyone who wants to fight me, send me a message. Challenges are free, but if you do, you won't survive. Extreme annoyance shows on Bongu's face, and he decides to pretend he didn't see that. Elsewhere, two mysterious members of the Anti-Bureau Alliance were reviewing a report. One confirmed to the other that High Command reported the failure of the target abduction operation. The second one wondered if this was the mission involving 2 of the 12 officers and elite agents. Not only did it fail, but they were all eliminated. The questioner was shocked, wondering how Alliance officers, even if they were lower ranked, could all be killed, and wondered what kind of humans were capable of doing that. The first member revealed that the brothers, referring to them, had been personally ordered to capture the target, Kim Bong-gu. The second member wondered if he, their leader, was only interested in the target because he was a symbolic and recently popular figure. The first confirmed this, adding that since the leader lost 2 officer-level forces because of him, he has surely become more obsessed with capturing him. The second member asked when they would move, but the first downplayed the mission, calling the target a small fish, and assured him there was no need to worry. They would deal with it quickly, and as soon as possible. Back at the Bukhansan gate entrance, Kang Jun and Bong-gu were preparing to enter. Bong-gu's ear felt itchy, so he joked that maybe a few guys were talking about him behind his back and planning to kill him right now. Bong-gu was annoyed by the joke, asserting he hadn't done anything to deserve being badmouthed. At the checkpoint, the guard asked Mr. Kim Bong-gu if he had other team members with him, and Bong-gu replied that it was just him and the porter, Kang Jun. The guard hesitated, explaining that entering the gate alone is extremely dangerous, even if it's not against regulations. Bong-gu tried to persuade him to overlook it, while Kang Jun was feeling hungry. The guard refused, saying that even as Mr. Kim Bong-gu the devoted son, this wasn't allowed. Meanwhile, he spotted a small convenience store, realizing the argument would drag on. Bong-gu insisted he was fine and offered to sign a waiver with the bureau if needed, so the guard finally agreed, asking him to come with him to verify. He told him to wait for him, assuring him he would return with the solo entry permit for his sake, for Kang Jun's training. He stopped him, asking to borrow his bank card to buy a quick bite, surprising Bong-gu. He justified the request by saying Bong-gu woke him up early for training and he hadn't eaten breakfast, asking him if he was stingy. Bong-gu denied it, flustered, but muttered that he already ate 2 bowls earlier. He quickly changed the subject, remembering he wanted to tell him that he had received a reward after the recent medal ceremony. He perked up at the words reward and money, and eagerly asked him about the amount. Bong-gu explained that he received 100 million won for eliminating the A-rank assassin at the Guro Digital Complex gate, and another 200 million for his contribution to suppressing the gate near Silim Crossroads, making a total of 300 million won. He was shocked by the large amount. Bong-gu admitted that technically, this was all thanks to him, and so he wanted to give him the money back. But he looked at him seriously and refused at first, so Bong-gu urged him to take it. Suddenly he grabbed him angrily, asking why he was only telling him now. He asked him nervously if this meant he wouldn't take the money. He shouted, asking why wouldn't he take it, accusing him of trying to keep the money for himself. Bong-gu vehemently denied it, swearing he was going to tell him but hadn't found the right opportunity. At that moment, the guard called for Bong-gu. He said seriously that the closer the relationship, the stricter financial matters should be, then announced he would settle for taking 200 million and leave the rest for Bong-gu. Bong-gu was conflicted, saying he didn't do anything and didn't feel right taking that large amount. But he reassured him, considering it a reward for helping him get around. Then he added with a sly smile that he would make sure to work him for at least another 100 million won's worth in training. Bong-gu was touched, while he ordered him to finish the registration process, so Bong-gu went first. Once he was alone, he thought about the total amount, 300 million, and concluded that it's a world where it's easy to make money, noting that what he took from Bong-gu last time lasted him for 3 months. He started calculating, if the weakling, the necromancer, he defeated was worth 100 million won, that means if he defeats 10 like him, he'll reach his goal, 1 billion won, and live like a king. He thought with a wicked smile that even if he defeated just 1 a day, it's a jackpot. He decided he would have to book 3 gates a day from now on. Upon entering the gate, the system announced his arrival at the Lizardman Forest. He noted that he only got in after signing the waiver. He felt refreshed by the gate's air, although he sensed a bad vibe. Soon, hordes of armed lizardmen appeared before him, confirming he was in the right place. He tells him that the expert instructor, meaning himself, will give a demonstration first, so he should watch closely. Bong-gu is surprised, thinking this style is different from what Elder Dolsu described. While Errol starts by attacking first, he seems surprisingly kind in his explanation. He moves through the forest, saying that a sword isn't designed to inflict fatal damage on someone right in front of you. He then unleashes a devastating flash punch, crushing one of the lizardmen. He explains to the astonished him that for now, he should focus on building enough skill to attack freely with his arms and legs. Bong-gu protests, reminding him that he is an awakened magic type. Bonggu complains to himself that Errol forced him into combat training, and now he is doing the same thing. He explains to him that there's a reason mages are called glass cannons, as they become helpless once the fight becomes close quarters. He continues his demonstration, taking down more lizardmen with fast, powerful moves, explaining that if Bonggu learns a little physical combat, he won't lose control when the enemy gets close. As he continues to eliminate the monsters, he adds that mastering more weapons will help him even more. Bonggu watches in awe, thinking that his movements look so natural. He delivers a finishing blow to another monster, concluding his explanation that, especially when rapid progress is needed, fixing weaknesses is more effective than chasing new strengths. Bonggu watches the monsters fall defeated, thinking that what he is seeing is truly amazing. He stands over the bodies of the lizardmen, telling him it's easy. Bonggu is completely stunned. He then points to another group of monsters, telling him it's his turn. Bonggu is shocked and terrified, screaming in his mind, wondering if he's serious, and concludes that he is worse than Errol. Meanwhile, in the apartment, the child Sol was bored and tells her Aunt Subin that she wants to see her dad. Subin tells her that her dad went with Uncle Bonggu for something important. Subin tries to distract her, promising that her dad will bring chicken and tofu snacks later, and Sol gets excited at the word chicken. She decides to ask him via message when he will be back. Subin suddenly remembers the previous execution not lesson scene and is shocked to find Sol repeating the word execution she memorized from her father. She thinks to herself angrily, wondering if she still remembers that. Then Sol picks up a banana, waves it proudly at Subin, and asks her if she did a good job. She smiles and answers yes, wondering to herself if her niece is really a genius.